Tonight's broadcast of the NLRL Console Endurance Series is brought to you by Malwa Transport, oversized cargo and trucking logistics specialists of Quebec. Visit their website on www.malwa-transport.ca. Good evening, race fans, and welcome back to TRTM for tonight's coverage of Season 2, Round 5 of the NLRL Console Endurance Series. We return after a long hiatus just before Christmas, back into the veil of endurance racing here in Season 2. As always, I'm Regan Clark. You join us here at Round 5 of the Championship, off of the back of the wettest race of the season in Silverstone at the Silverstone 6 Hours back in December, onto what is set to be another wet race here in Season 2, right here at the home of Italian motor racing, the Autodromo Internazionale Enzo Dino Ferrari. Founded in 1953 and in the modern day comprised of 19 turns and 3.050 miles or 4.909 kilometers of FIA Grade 1, it's the former home of the Emilia-Romagna formerly San Marino Grand Prix in Formula 1. In 2026, it's set to host three major landmark events: the FIA World Endurance Championships, 6 Hours of Imola, the fourth time that event has been ran since 2011, the European Le Mans Series 4 Hours of Imola, which has ran since 2013, and the Lamborghini Super Trofeo Europe Series is set to come here to Imola in the 2026 season. Nonetheless, it's the home of Round 5 of Season 2, and taking a look at the calendar, not long left then, as we're into the second half of what has been a fantastic season so far. Recounting on what was the last couple of rounds, namely that big round, the 6 Hours of Silverstone, that saw a chapter of three major parties contending for that charge of the race win last round just gone. Ultimately, it went to XCL once again. The number 788 took its third win of the season in the hands of Florian Oxman, Nat Bennett and Fazzy Binks, and it also maintains Exclusive Esports' 100% win rate so far in the first half of the championship, mirroring the best qualities of their Season 1 performance. Things are looking very, very spicy indeed here in Imola. There have been reports of quite sizable changes in the weather profile, hot weather and rain at the same time. As a matter of fact, if we go and take a look out onto the charts, it is showing signs that the rain will be thinning out in the next 30 minutes, but that's some way from now. We only have about, looking here, in and around the ballpark of about 6 minutes before we get on towards qualifying. Nonetheless, I am not mistaken in seeing that the track temperatures are somehow 36 degrees in spite of what is very clearly quite the sizable amount of rain on track. Taking a look then into the championships and session itinerary, let's get on to the discussion then right off the bat here. Starting off with the session itinerary coming up, of course, we're in the midst of 10 minutes of free practice, then 20 minutes of qualifying, and then 180 minutes. That's 3 hours of racing here in Imola, the shortest round of the championship in Season 2. Taking a look at the stint limit, we do find ourselves still in that 70-minute stint limit at the time of recording. Now, that's the same as what we had in Silverstone. It leaves a little bit of overlap for the drivers here, and there are some teams fielding, and this does come as quite a surprise to me, 4 driver lineups. There's 2 teams in particular. We'll get onto that topic a little later on. Starting things off on the topic of the championships, first looking into the top 12 for the Teams Championship. Exclusive Esports continues to lead by a growing margin over Euro Titans Endurance. 5-Star Esports in third, Fats GT fourth. Tempest now moves up into the top 5 despite being only a single car in this championship. NRW Performance with their twin car lineup a single point ahead of Malwa Racing makes 6th and 7th place. MSA drops down to 8th with Race Vision Motorsports 9th. Majestic Racing in 10th. AXRL Heat up to 11th, and Sparko CTA, now X-Ray, in 12th place. Looking into what the rest of the championship is concerned with then, looking at the overall standings, the 788 leads the charge still, and by a growing margin over the number 787. We're looking here in the ballpark of about 70, nearly 70 points. There's 68 points, if I'm not mistaken, between the pair at the forefront of that championship. Tempest now third outright in the number 30, ahead of the Euro Titans number 313 with 118 points. Into the top 5 then, the 1-2-3 for Fats GT with 106 points to their name. They're ahead of the 5-star number 113 with 91 points. That comes up ahead of a joint 7th place here between 2 exclusive cars, the 791 and the 789, with 84 points apiece. 9th place then for the Euro Titans number 316, currently racking in 75 points after 4 rounds of competition. Rounding out the top 10, the now defunct entry of the MSA number 414 with 74 points. In the Privateers wing, Tempest lead by a country mile over NRW in 2nd place. The number 77 takes up the slack ahead of Race Vision Motorsports number 9 with 154 points. Majestic Racing with 4th place at the moment, 94 points with 94 with 150 points, I should say, in the championship. They find themselves up and ahead of De Ave Maria in 5th place with 129 points. Black Nitro Racing's number 69 car, 109.5 points after that split decision earlier on this season. A joint 7th place once again here. NRW's 777 and Team Raceline Motorsports is number 60, both with 76 points. KTJ Motorsports number 37 with 57 points, rounding out the top 10. VEC Esports is number 322 with 43 points in the championship. We've been watching on board for some time here with Brooklyn Donkin, but let's get a look on board with some of the other drivers of today's grid, and there are some new names joining us for this round of the championship. We see here Nexus GT. This is Chinwei in the number 2 car. This is one of the new entries on the field. We'll get onto them in a moment's time. We take a look around the field to see some of the 5-star cars, but here we see the return of a face that's very familiar to us over on the Sunday League, and that, as it pray tell, is the Holkianos Motorsports team, a 4-driver lineup. Ivan Sanchez, Javier Alonso, JM Quito, and Sergio Belda in the number 11 McLaren, making their debut here at round 5 of the championship. They're currently still in the paddock. We see Cas van Veltzen now joined by Ben Meredith for this round of the championship in that number 313 Ferrari. A bit of trouble down through Aqua Minerale. Up the road there, Axel Cassier in the number 119 Malwar Racing Bentley. He and David Tanguay in a 2-man lineup. And according to SimGrid, they're without Christian Lebay for the first time this season. So it's a single car entry for the Malwar team here in wet and wild conditions to follow, and what looks to be a double whammy of wet races here in Season 2 after the nightmare for some that was Silverstone. Taking a look around the field, we'll stay on board with John Williams now, the number 123 with Fatch GT, as we get on to the subject just before the end of free practice and then on towards qualifying in a moment's time of balance of performance. Things are looking rather interesting indeed. Bentley with paramount advantage over the rest of the grid, 17 kilos off. That's going to be fantastic news for the number 788 Bentley of the exclusive esports team. It'll also be great news for the 119 over at Malwar Racing. Aston Martin losing 2 kilos, and that's the same story for BMW. Lamborghini, and we'll find that single Lamborghini entry to be Black Nitro Racing's new number 28 car. That's replacing the 69 in this championship. Maximilian Schimpf and Raphael Bayer behind the wheel. They'll be net neutral for weight gain and loss. We see pulling to one side there, the 123, and back into the paddock. So now we get on board with Senna Broines of the Team Raceline, a brand new livery there for the number 60. A few different redesigns over the course of the season. We'll get on to Ferrari in a moment's time. They are on this chart, of course, but behind them is Porsche in the 992 with 7 kilos on board. McLaren and Ferrari gaining 8 kilos, and Ford once again short end of the stick for the 7th gen Mustang, 18 kilos on for round 5 of the championship. So as we see here, new livery and new logo, as it turns out here for Team Raceline in the number 60 car on their way in towards Ravazza corner here, turns 17 and 18. Now through turn 19. And of course, we mentioned before, Holkianos was a 4-man lineup. This is the other half of those 4-man lineups here. Casey Mouse, Thomas Romano, Senna Broines, and James Hornell in the number 60 Ferrari 296. They're on their way down towards line. 3rd fastest with a 148.812 out of Senna Broines. Now, we saw a very limited performance by Broines back in, I want to say Season 2 of the NLRL Sunday League. So this could be quite a curious one to see once again back under the veil of the No Limits Racing League what they can do. Taking a look at the charts here just before the end of free practice, we see Jorbe van Herle and Elias Svenningsson fastest in free practice. Then the 788 of Florian Oxman behind the wheel. Michael Picconi 3rd with De Ave Maria. Senna Broines 4th fastest. So I think we're just about to see the 313 across the line, and it's Cas van Veltzen to fastest in free practice. From behind them there, saw one of the McLaren cars. Now, trying to pick up as to whom exactly that was. It was the 316, Jack Giles behind the wheel. Sadly, couldn't put a time in on the charts. Not far then from the discussion of qualifying, and already things are looking rather exciting here in what looks to be wet conditions to follow in Imola. Now, weather radars are showing that the rain is thinning out in the next 30 minutes, and now we do know the sessions jump in time in terms of the game's local time, so we could actually be seeing the potential hopes here for dry qualifying, or perhaps even, dare I say, a dry race coming up. The 114 was across the line a moment ago. Ben Cheeseman in 7th at the end of free practice. That's quite a curious story, though. The 788 floundering a little bit here in free practice. Now, we must consider as well, there is definitely the adage of potential sandbagging. They could be trying out racing load fuel, racing setups. So we've yet to really, I'd say, see them at full whack and full chatter in that Bentley. But there's some curious notes to be had here. Team Raceline and Del Ave Maria in the top 5. Michael Bocconi and Senna Boines. It's going to make for an interesting one today. Make no mistake of it. We'll be on to the talk of qualifying in a moment's time. Coming down towards the line then, Florian Oxman. In the number 788, of course, the defending champions of Season 1 of the Console Endurance Series. That's 788 across the line. We'll see where they ranked up in terms of the free practice times, as we already see movement amongst the paddock, and they're jumping the gun in towards the pit exit. We can see a race down to the line between the 789 and the 313. Ultimately, it's Van Velzen out onto the grid first amongst the fray. Let's get on board with the 313 here of Cas Van Velzen. Joined by Ben Meredith, I believe, in that car at the moment in the 313. That's the lineup as reported from SimGrid for the Euro Titans 313 Ferrari. They're first out amongst the fray. Let's just quickly have a look at those times towards the end of free practice. Were we to believe that there was sandbagging going on? We saw Oxman across the line was half a second away as it stood. And I've also been told as well that the balance of performance might actually be out of calibration, as there have been reports, quite a few as a matter of fact, to evidence towards that. So taking a look just briefly back into BOP for a second, that a lot of these are actually up 10 kilos. I've been hearing reports, and I didn't know if I could believe them at first glance or whether or not that would have been tidied up before the race started. But if I'm not mistaken, I did get a glance there at Bentley's BOP, and it shows they've actually not got 17 kilos, they've got 7 kilos off. Still, with the best advantage of any car on today's grid by the sounds of it, if it's 10 kilos on top of everything, so that would push Aston Martin and BMW to plus 8 kilos, Lamborghini to plus 10, Porsche to plus 17, McLaren and Ferrari to plus 18, and Ford to a staggering 28. I'll see how much I'm willing to believe that at the moment. Let's get into the discussion before we try to verify any claims over balance of performance being inaccurate today on the qualifying predictions. And definitely we are talking about inaccuracy today, because you can see the discrepancy there in terms of the times because of how varied the conditions have been since the server opened after Christmas. For testing here in Imola, we've seen hell and high water in terms of weather conditions, and that's what gives us this incredibly bizarre look at the qualifying predictions. The largest gap I think we've seen on record here, a factor of 8 seconds, just under 8 seconds as it stands, about 7.9 approximately seconds between the 1st and 10th position cars. And now that's attributed to such diverse weather conditions, where there have been dry but very hot conditions, or wet and also still quite hot conditions. Really seems to be a case that whatever's happened here, it's weather conditions of apocalyptic proportion. We're on board with the 313. So we take a look here just quickly into the timetables. And yes, I believe our running theory that, yeah, okay. So the theory that we had, that 10 kilos had been added on top of the current BOP package. Now, just to bring that back up, that is 100% true. So just to reconfirm, from that maths, Bentley will be losing, I should say, 7 kilos. Aston Martin and BMW will be gaining 8 kilos. Lamborghini will be gaining 10. Porsche gaining 17. McLaren and Ferrari gaining 18. Ford, I'm pretty sure the cap is set at 20, but if, you know, the maths add up, it's 28 kilos for the Mustang. Certainly not the kind of news a lot of these teams were looking to hear, especially for the case of Aston Martin and BMW. They were actually looking to be in the negatives coming into this race. That would have seen great advantage for quite a few behind the wheel. Now it seems to be only Bentley with the advantage. Now I'm sure Malwar Racing and Exclusive Esports aren't going to be too upset with how that's turned out, because they still find themselves the only vehicle on the grid with any kind of weight reduction here in round 5 of the championship. We see down towards the line then the first of our flying laps today in qualifying from the 313 of Van Velzen. Across the line he goes, but sadly didn't put a time on the chart, so it's up to Gianluca Zamponi in the number 789 to put the first time onto the chart. Carlos Disch intercepted by 18 thousandths there as Federico Zamblera third fastest. Then we see up to the fastest time the 5-star esports of Jorbit Van Herle in the number 113. So this is definitely a very elbows-out performance to kick things off in qualifying. Rafael Bayer, 4th fastest for Black Nitro Racing. That pushes Zamblera down to 5th. Zenvitas currently 6th place. Jack Giles 7th. And James Mason in 8th place. Coming to the line, the number 60. That's Team Raceline, if I'm not mistaken. We'll see them onto the charts in a moment's time with any hopes here. We see their Senna Broines in 9th place there after that first flying lap. The 114 coming to the line. We'll just quickly see them here. Ben Cheeseman down to the line, 8th fastest. From behind them, we see down towards the line the 720 of Ben Hart with Nexus GT and Ivan Sanchez with Holkianos Motorsports. So 5 minutes into the session, we still got times rolling in. Coming up is the 314 from Euro Titans, Brooklyn Donkin and Kieran Rodd, 9th fastest after their first flying laps. The 119 from behind them as well. That was the Bentley of the Malwar Racing team. And I believe at this time, we see it shows up there as the 301. And that's down to a discrepancy in the joining order for the drivers. So evidently, I think Axel Cassier has been the latest to join, as he normally rocks the 301. The car overall, though, is that 119. Behind the wheel at the moment, David Tangway onto another flying lap. We see in the background there, mounting traffic. Meanwhile, as it stands after the first 5 minutes, it's 5-star in the lead by 185 thousandths over Gianluca Zamponi. Carlos Dish on his way towards the line. We see in the background there was Federico Zamblera with Exclusive Esports. I want to point this out. Black Nitro Racing's newest addition to the fleet there. As we see Dish across the line, stays 3rd fastest. Black Nitro Racing, the number 69 registered as a DSQ coming in around 5 of the championship, and standing into their place appears to be the number 28. Now, we've seen Rafael Bayer and Maximilian Schimpf currently in that new lineup at the Black Nitro Racing team. We've seen them before, and this is the first time in this championship Lamborghini has competed on this field. So it is going to make for a very unique showing of things, and they've kicked things off to what is otherwise a very solid performance so far. We see there a little bit of upset through the Aqua Minerali section. They're pushed down now to 5th place, Florian Oxman to 4th. But that does not diminish from what they've been able to do right off the bat. They're leading the charge for the privateers at this time, ahead of Zenvitas in the Race Vision Motorsports car division 2nd, outright 7th. We do see as well, this is actually quite a curious one. This is one of the new drivers on the field. Now, this is the MSR team, the Manthai Sim Racing team, as it were. Gio Boris behind the wheel. We saw him in the trailing end of Season 4, the Sunday League. Now we see his endurance debut here alongside his team at MSR. So it's curious to see what they're going to be able to do. At the moment, they're going toe-to-toe with a fellow Porsche for 11th place, Alan Alexander. And joining him for this round, Ian Skeen in the number 315. Last time we saw Skeen here in Imola was back when he placed, I think it was 2nd, taking a look into the last time we were here. That was in Season 1, Round 1. We see that the 696 placed 2nd place in Imola. Behind NLR's number 5, the Mustang took its one and only victory in that season in the hands of the NLR team. XCL in 3rd with K1, now currently 5-star in 4th, AXRL 5th. Exclusive in the 787 6th, the number 113 7th, the 414 8th, the 123 9th, and the 789 in 10th. Of course, that is a slightly longer round than the one we got on hand today. We now see it is a 5-star 1-2 in qualifying just before the halfway mark. 33 thousandths of a second separate Jorbe van Hurle from Carlos Dish. McLaren and Aston Martin leading the charge here, and it's an all-British front and second row. As we see behind them, McLaren in the hands of Gianluca Zamponi and Exclusive Esports, and then Florian Oxman to the line here with the Bentley. I must say as well, in the wet conditions, it has really been the British manufacturers' times to shine here. Aston Martin, McLaren and Bentley all up in that top 10. Very prominent figures, almost eclipsing the top 5 there. Now we see some fight back from the German manufacturers at BMW. KTJ Motorsports' Kieran McMillan, 4th fastest now ahead of Oxman, and pushes him down to the back of the top 5. It pushes Levi Warner with Fatch GT's number 23 Mustang just down and out of the top 5 as of right now. 11 minutes left to go, so still plenty of time to consider in the long run here in qualifying. The 94 coming to the line. New driver for Majestic Racing, Xavier Kugler. Across the line there, 24th, 4.115 seconds off of the fastest. A considerable chunk away from the rest of the grid as it stands right now. crossed the line a moment ago. That was, I believe, Adam Saunders. Yes, the number 30 now up and ahead of Rafael Bayer and into 8th place. Eyeing up his chances over David Tanguay with Malwar Racing. Those two separated for 7th place by 5 thousandths of a second. Coming to the line next, then, we'll be catching on board with the 77 if we can intercept them in time here. Dennis Kuhleman and Martin Kramer of NRW Performance. From behind them there, the 316 coming to the line as well. One of the Euro Titans cars. Down to the line then from 20th place, NRW Performance. Where can they find themselves after the last lap? Sadly to no advance of position, but for Jack Giles, he's up to 13th after that last lap just gone. 600ths of a second away from the nearest position. That's Zen Vitus in 12th place up the road from him, as we see a very, very busy pit lane indeed. Storming out the gates there is Vitus. I believe turned his pit limiter off. Well, he was definitely getting a wriggle on there on the exit. On the run down towards the Variante Tamburello. Before we get to the end of qualifying, of course, we will catch on with some drivers to get a full tour of this fantastic venue, a cornerstone of motorsports history. We catch back on board here with Cas van Velsen in the number 313 with Euro Titans Endurance. See him making his way down towards the line here. 9.5 minutes left to go. So on that last lap, he stays in 10th place as we begin the run down towards the Variante Tamburello. This section was remodeled after the tragic events of the 1994 San Marino Grand Prix into a chicane, as opposed to the fast left-hander it was before the events of the 1994 San Marino Grand Prix, which tragically cost us the lives of Roland Ratzenberger and Ayrton Senna. In towards the Variante Villeneuve, named after Gilles Villeneuve. In towards Tosa, then, as one of our major overtaking opportunities after these two areas. Very easy for cars to get side by side, but this is often where they choose to make a mark on a move. In through turn 7, then on the run uphill, up towards turn 8 and 9 at Piratella. So back on board again with the 313. In towards turn 9 we go, cresting through turn 8, through turn 9 now through Piratella. Down through this long sweeping downhill left-hander through turn 10 on the run into probably one of the most iconic sections of Imola, the Acqua Minerale. In through turns 11, 12 and 13. See they're clad in the logo of Imola as a circuit. Up out of turn 13 then on the short back straight run in towards the Variante Alta. And these curbs, not to be taken lightly, but as you can see there, Cas van Velsen simply just didn't get the instructions and went straight over them, bulldozed them in that 296, and it looked relatively easy to do so as well. Very rarely is that such a case for Ferrari, as we found out in the last couple of years. Down through turn 16 into a turn 17 and 18 here at Bravazza, another overtaking opportunity to be found over the course of today's 3-hour race, the shortest of the season here in Season 2. It's going to be, compared to Silverstone last round, it's going to come up as somewhat of a sprint race by comparison here for quite a few of these teams. Coming down towards the line and out through turn 19, Euro Titans Endurance's Cas van Velsen, third fastest after that last run. So not only was it a great exhibition of this circuit, it was also an absolute blinder for Ferrari at their home track, of course, named after Enzo and Dino Ferrari, the Autodromo Internazionale Enzo e Dino Ferrari, a literal translation of the International Autodrome of Enzo and Dino Ferrari. We can see there Van Velsen was off of that fastest lap by 58 thousandths. And now I want to bring this into question as well, as not only is it still close between the front row, but the second row has made this even closer. When you consider now from first to fourth is less than a 1/10 of a second. 95 thousandths off the beat here. David Tanguay in the number 119 Malwar Racing Bentley. He's alongside Axel Cassier in that number 119. A two-man lineup according to SimGrid for today's event. This is set to be probably one of the most exciting conclusions to qualifying we've seen in quite some time here in the Console Endurance Series. Things are showing a little bit of a sign of struggle for the 788, a car normally dominating qualifying. Is it a case of sandbagging? Are we getting our hopes up? Only time can tell us different. With 6.5 minutes to the line here, we have 4 cars in less than the time it takes for one to blink, separated front to back for the top 4 positions of this grid. That is diabolical. Michael K18 in chat asks, who do you predict for the win? A fantastic question. It's a tough one when you consider both car and driver alike. They have to work in perfect symbiosis for everything to match up in these endurance races. It's a game of consistency. If I had to go pointing fingers, we'd have to take a look back to the last round when the 112 was leading the charge for 5-star. It was a precarious fight between themselves and the 788, but the Aston Martin showed fantastic prowess in the wet weather. I would say when it comes down to machinery, take an eye over to the 112. When it comes to the drivers, that is a different question entirely. A little too tough to answer. Jorge Van Herle has shown exceptional performance here in the wet. Same story for Diesch, who now takes the fastest lap. I should mind there, the 112 now fastest by 20 thousandths of a second. Aston Martin could be eyeing up their first pole in console endurance series history. This has come as a landmark move here for the Aston Martin. They've led races before. Rarely have they started them at the forefront. And for the 112, we saw those hopes there just be shattered. 35 thousandths up the road, ahead of 5-star, ahead of Euro Titans, ahead of Malois Racing, ahead of Exclusive, is the sensations in privateer category was Adam Saunders. And I say was because now up to fastest by 0.2 of a second. It comes better late than never for Florian Oxman. How many turns can qualifying take in 1 minute? Let alone 4.5. We have just seen there 4 different drivers lead the charge in qualifying in less than a minute. It started with Van Herle, then it was Diesch, then it was Saunders, and then not much later than that, it was Oxman. So now that definitely does change up the question to Mr. Michael K18 in chat. Who do you predict for the win? Well, now that we've seen that their early warning signs of struggle were nothing more than smoke and mirrors and the signs of sandbagging and experimentation, we see now that the 788 has woken up from out of its slumber, it could be a tough one for the rest of the grid to stay on with that 788. Now, if the rain really does come down hard here in Imola, I have still hopes yet for Aston Martin, as arguably of the cars in the top 5 right now, pound for pound the best in the wet conditions. But they're up against elite drivers in that 788, a finely crafted ensemble. They have not left anything up to spare, and while it was a risky move to move them away from McLaren last season to Bentley this season, evidently that's been a gamble well worth making for the Exclusive Esports team. Bear in mind, that 788, or at least the number of the 788, that is the number of the defending champions of Season 1. They started off this story with McLaren, and now they continue that saga. 3 race wins so far this season with the 788 Bentley. Yet to have finished off of the podium either. Worst result this season was, I believe, 3rd place. Nothing to scoff at there at all. It has definitely made things a lot more interesting than it was just now, with 4 cars separated by less than a tenth, as now those cars still are in that incredibly short span of time between one another. So that 3rd and 4th place spot are still up for grabs. And I would even go as far to say as well, with the introduction of Adam Saunders really not too far up the road from Diesch or Van Herle or Van Velzen or Tanguay for that matter, there are 5 drivers currently competing for the front row. The number 5 coming to the line from a moment ago. Actually, no, that wasn't the number 5. Sorry, that was the number 1. Wow, I need to get my eyes checked. Josh Welbelove of Nexus GT on his way to the line there. 17th after that last lap. 25 thousandths up the road from Michael Picconi in the number 5 of Del Ave Maria Ferrari. 2 minutes left to go then, and Oxman takes a breather in the pit lane here. We see leaving from in the background, just slightly out of focus there, Alan Alexander in the 315. Up ahead of him there, you see the number 23, Levi Warner with Fatch GT. So it does leave a lot up to question here. Where can we next see those big moves come from? We see Adam Saunders peeling into the pit lane beyond the point of no return here. So that is at the best of times here for Tempest Motorsports, a front row start, nothing to scoff at whatsoever. When it comes to the start, we know how competitive Ford is off of the line here. I've got word in chat as well from someone keeping us in the loop on the current situation in the World Rally Championship. Adrian Formo just won stage 13 of the Monte Carlo Rally. As a matter of fact, we'll be talking about the Monte Carlo Rally in just a moment's time, as things have been very interesting on what is currently day 3 of the 94th running of the Monte Carlo Rally. That comes up in the news segment later on after qualifying. We see here with Carlos Disch still out on track, and we'll see what their progress is looking like when they get to the end of their flying lap. Next to the line, though, is the number 223. I believe that to be VEC Esports at this time. We see here, that's the 332. The 223 is Fats GT. Sorry, again, need to get my eyes checked. Sander Verstecher down to the line, 23rd. As for the 332, Jensen Santiago currently on his way through Ravazza. Up in front of him there, you can see is the MSR team. Gio Boris behind the wheel. Serbian talent we saw in season 4, round 10 of the Sunday League. We'll see down to the line from 21st on the field. By the looks of it there, crossed the line with just enough time before the end of qualifying today. We'll catch back on with the number 112 just on their way through Ravazza, because I believe they'll just be beaten by the bell here. So for Carlos Disch, it has to have counted for something as heading down towards the line. Could it be a front row start coming up for 5-star Esports Aston Martin on their way towards the line here? 257 thousandths from pole, not too far off from second. We saw it was an improvement, but sadly not by enough this time around. It was still a valiant performance. A second row start here for 5-star Esports across the board. 3rd and 4th for the time being. Across the line a moment ago, Michael Picconi in 7th place with Delave Maria. The 123 and the 113 coming to the line. You see here with Jorbe van Herle trailing on the back of the 123 Fats GT Ferrari. Into the pit lane they go. So here comes the 113. Bear in mind, one of several drivers involved in that fight for the front. Where Disch couldn't make it to the front row, can Van Herle find any greater success? Not this time around. Again, reinforcing the element of that 5-star second row. Number 223 coming to the line. We'll not get it mixed up this time around. Sander Verstecher, we saw him down towards the line a moment ago. And we see in the background there the Holkianos car coming towards the line. We'll see what they land towards the end of qualifying. Here comes Verstecher, though, from 23rd to 21st. And dethroning there, Gio Boris to 21st position. That pushes the MSR car down towards 22nd place on this grid. Into the pits we see in the background there was the likes of the Holkianos team. We also see coming in, there is the number 119, David Tanguay. We saw across the line a moment ago, or at least heard across the line, Gianluca Zamponi, Exclusive Esports, 10th place there in the 789. Some of the major takeaways from this qualifying session so far has been the amount of privateers in that top 10. Of course, Tempest up at the forefront, right now leading on the front line, alongside Exclusive Esports on pole position right now. We also see Delave Maria, KTJ Motorsports, and Black Nitro Racing inside of that top 10, as we actually saw right at the very end there, I believe, looking at it here, was Federico Zamblero, if I'm not mistaken, across the line a moment ago to push Zamponi out of the top 10. So what an end to qualifying we've had here in Imola with the shortest round of the championship, and it has still maintained the same balance all throughout. We see Florian Oxman then on pole position in the 788 in the overall and pro category, and we see in terms of the Privateers wing, right alongside him on the front row, leading the charge in division, Tempest Motorsports. Now 3rd outright in the championship. You can't argue with what the number 30 has been able to do with one car and a handful of very talented drivers. We'll see exactly how that race pans out in a moment's time then, on towards what is going to be 3 hours of racing here in Imola. But before we get to that, let's take a little gander at the news. And whilst we just quickly refresh some of our data, as we've been informed of the end of the Monaco circuit stage 13 run of the Monte Carlo Rally, now we can get into the discussion as of right now of the news at hand. And we just had to quickly change one word of it because it did just drop back in behind to invalidate the validity of that report. But in the World Rally Championship, Oliver Solberg leads by just under a minute. It was just over a minute before stage 13, but it has dropped now to 59.3 seconds in Monte Carlo. in the 94th running of the Monte Carlo Rally. It was a fantastic run so far. Still one more day to go here in the Monte Carlo Rally onto the fourth leg with stage 14, 15, 16 and 17 to follow. He leads ahead of Elfyn Evans and Seb Ogier. Adrien Formeau most recently took stage wins on stage 13 of the Monaco Circuit Special stage. That currently keeps the Frenchman 4th place in this rally, leading for the Hyundai lineup ahead of Thierry Neuville. John Armstrong in 6th in Rally 1. And then in 7th overall, leading the Rally 2 category, is Leo Rossell with Citroën. Now, I just want to point out something that has happened over the course of day 2 here at the Monte Carlo Rally. Some of the most bizarre things we've seen. So in stage 12, it was a Rally 2 car, Roberto Dapra with Skoda, I believe, was 4th fastest in stage 12. Then the stage before that, because of how poor the weather has been in Monte Carlo over the course of this rally, it was a case that on stage 11, we had on the 1, 2, 3 lineup, Oliver Solberg on the fastest of that stage in a Rally 1 Toyota Yaris. Second place was Johan Rossell in a Lancia Ypsilon Rally 2. And in 3rd place, Matteo Fontana in a Rally 3 Ford Fiesta. The top 3 echelons of the rally pyramid comprised the podium on stage 11 because of how poor the weather is now. It is sleet, it is snow, it is ice, it is everything in between in one of the most extreme weather conditions we've seen in the Monte Carlo Rally in the last couple of years, especially so in the Rally 1 era. It has been a fantastic running of things so far. The bottom line, though, Oliver Solberg, son of Petter Solberg, 2003 World Rally Champion with Subaru, is leading the charge on his first rally of 2026 by just under a minute. That is so close to being dead on a minute as well. Our other article of news just before the grid is the big announcement in the world of gaming. Of course, the elephant in the room. Playground Games announced on the 22nd Forza Horizon 6. It was set to drop on May 19th, 2026 and on May 15th for early access, featuring over 550 cars and a hotly awaited location for fans of the franchise as they head to Japan at long last. The gameplay showcase they had on the 22nd of the Xbox Developer Showcase was fantastic and showed off a great variety of new features we're thoroughly looking forward to seeing on our screens when we pick the game up in a few months' time. That is set to be quite a lot of fun indeed. Have your opinions, what have you, about Forza Horizon, but you can't deny it is one of the greatest racing franchises we've got at the moment for both fans of racing and for car enthusiasts alike. It really is a wonderful little melting pot, and I'm sure we're all excited to see them finally head to the land of the rising sun coming up on May 19th. Well, with the news over, let's get on to the subject of the grid at hand, and an incredible end to this qualifying session has given us a very, very tight grid indeed. Leading the charge then, the 788 of Florian Oxman with Exclusive Esports, and we're just reading the names off of the charts here, so if there are other drivers in the car, it will soon update, but regardless, we'll read the car numbers as well. The number 30 Tempest Motorsports car of Adam Saunders in 2nd place, leading for the Privateers division, and then an incredibly close middle of the top 10 run here as we start here 3rd place for Carlos Diesch in the 112, then Jorbe van Herle in the 113, Cas van Velzen in the 313, and there we see it was the addition, yes, of the 787 of Will Friedman, pushing out away David Tanguay to 7th place in the number 119. Now, these 5, I should point out, and I even say on a greater scale here, these 6 find themselves separated front to back by, I think, a little under a 10th and a half in grand total from 2nd to 7th on this grid. Behind them then, 8th place for Michael Picconi in the number 5 Delave Maria car, the number 37 KTJ BMW of Kieran McMillan starts 9th place ahead of Rafael Bayer in the number 28 Black Nitro Racing Lamborghini. In 11th place, Matteo Mastromauro in the number 789 Exclusive Esports McLaren ahead of Zen Vitus in the number 9 Race Vision Motorsports Ferrari. Spencer Brown in 13th place in the number 23 Ford with Miles 14th, I should say, in the Team Raceline Ferrari. Ian Skeen 15th in the 315 Euro Titans Porsche with Brooklyn Donkin in the 314 and Jack Giles in the 316, making 15th, 16th and 17th there for Euro Titans Endurance. John Williams 18th with Fats GT ahead of Nexus GT's Josh Wellbeloved 19th place, and he starts ahead of James Mason, who rounds out the top 20 with 5-star Esports' number 115. Sando Verstecher in 21st ahead of Gio Boris 22nd, Dennis Kuhleman in 23rd with Jensen Santiago 24th on this grid ahead of the last of the top 25 there, Ben Cheeseman in the 114. 24. Ben Hart in 26th place ahead of Ivan Sanchez in 27th. Xavier Kugler in 28th place ahead of Gage Bruce to round out what is a 29-car grid in the shortest round of Season 2. This is going to be the big one then, folks. We are but moments away from the 30-second warning. We'll be catching on board with the 788 on pole here once again. The defending champions over at Exclusive Esports have been very, very rarely, I should mind you, second to none, bar the one time that they were third this season. And that happened all the way back in round 3 in Australia. See there on the previous winners, they've had a few different drivers behind the wheel, but for today, the 788 finds himself comprised of but only 2. Looking on board then with the 788, Florian Oxman and Fazzy Binks, they'll be taking to the track in a moment's time. We saw there in the background, was that, I believe, a little bit of a, was that disconnect there? For the 787, I think so. Yes, it is. The 787, Federico Zamblera, not a disconnect, but he is starting from the pit lane. What a bizarre twist then for the 787. Now, that does little to diminish what is currently an advantage against the rest of the field here for Exclusive Esports. They start up in that leading position. Very few to oppose them on that front. They're going to have a very lively start of things, though, with a Ford Mustang right alongside them and Aston Martin up there behind. And with a McLaren not far off its trails either, it's going to make for a very messy run through the Variante Tamburello for the first time today here in the 3 hours of Imola. We've seen their prowess come rain or shine, so there is very little to sort of shake our hopes here of the 788 taking a potential 4th race win this season and maintaining that 100% win record for Exclusive Esports. You see there, that is Federico Zamblera in the pit lane in the 787. Now, most recently was there the swap out between Zamblera. He was joined by Vermack in the last round in that number 787 at Silverstone. Now Will Friedman is alongside him in the BMW. Speaking of BMWs, here's the new driver for Majestic Racing. We see here with Xavier Kugler. He's joined by Maximilian Koenig in the number 94 BMW. Josh Wellbeloved of Nexus GT, and you can see there Noah Haggard now takes into the helm. Now, he was the most recent addition to the 115 lineup, replacing Scott Milbank in that BMW. He's nonetheless still joined by James Mason. We saw Noah Haggard through Season 1 and I believe a little bit of Season 2 of the Sunday League, and even as far back as Season 1 of the Console Endurance Series. So he's a veteran talent of the 5-star former K1 lineup. We see here KTJ Motorsports' Kieran McMillan, and we saw some great promise from KTJ out through Bathurst and Silverstone. We'll see what they can do again here today in Imola. Looking on board of the car currently in what looks to be 2nd place. It shows 3rd, and also with having served that mandatory pit stop already. A curious case for the number 30 Zolt Beefgartner behind the wheel of the Tempest car. And we can see there a lot of connection trouble, so it cuts us on board now with the car starting 3rd place, potentially 2nd if there's continued troubles for the number 30. Carlos Dish with 5-star Esports with the Aston Martin. We saw them to be race leaders in their own right back in Silverstone. We'll see exactly how everything fares coming up later on today. Let's go and catch on board, though, with the leading car. As we hurry on towards the point of view of the number 788, once again leading this charge, but isolated from his comrades and the Exclusive Esports team. He's off by his lonesome to face a full frontal assault on the run down towards Tamburello for the first time then. So as we start to line up here, 29 cars in all, 28 on the track, and 1 from the pit lane. As we roll down towards the line here in Imola, 3 hours of racing to follow here at Season 2, Round 5 of the NLRL Console Endurance Series, powered by Malwar Transport and live exclusively on TRTN. Heading down towards the line then, the 788 from the number 30, a front row of the 2 leading cars in the 2 categories of this championship, heading to the line without further ado then. After the long wait through turn 19, now turn 1, We are green and racing here in Imola. A great start then from the front row. The Bentley already breaking away from the Ford as we go racing down towards Tamburello for the first time. On the second row is a great start for Van Herle, getting up and ahead of Carlos Disch into third place as we head down towards Tamburello for the first time. We see off in the background here, things can and often do get dicey here in Imola, but I am pleasantly surprised as we just caught there from the middle of the pack on with Josh Welbelove to see things relatively cleaner. As I say that, there goes the Team Raceline car as it collides with the number 115. Trouble already, yellow flags out, and it has created a cascade effect that has caught so many out over the course of the opening 3 corners here. We thought we had it easy. This was a little upset between the 115 and the number 60 there, Contact. Moreover, I think there was a third party in that as well. Very difficult to tell. It's caught so many drivers up in that first section here. Yellow flags are still out for damaged vehicles, among them Noah Haggard in the 115. See behind them there, Ivan Sanchez for Hokianos. Then down the line, we also see as well Ben Hart with Nexus GT and Gijs Bruce of Fats GT. It has created a huge schism in the field here. 18th down towards 29th, now separated from the rest of the field. We see now on board up in the top 10 here with Kieran McMillan chasing the Bentley there of David Tanguay. In the 119 up in front of him, we see from behind a potential battle to be between Euro Titans Endurance and Black Nitro Racing. It's been a howler of a start then for the Lamborghini of Rafael Bayer. Has dropped down quite a few positions from the race start by the looks of things there. We do actually wait to see when the telemetry updates. It might be the opposite, but as you can see in the bottom left-hand side, it's going absolutely berserk trying to figure out where all of the drivers are on track at this time. They can't seem to make head or tail of it. Looking up into that second row, now quickly becomes a bleed into the fight of the third row. We see here, with the 113 leading that charge right behind them, you can see is Van Velzen and Tanguay, and Disch for that matter, all chasing the 113. Van Velzen runs out wide through Tamburello, has to rejoin over alongside them, drops in behind that of Kieran McMillan in the KTJ Motorsports BMW. A very chaotic opening 3 minutes, all of which has created the perfect recipe to allow the 788 to just glide away up the field, some 2.4 seconds up from the car in second place. From the point of view here of Van Herle, who now makes the podium for 5-Star Esports, that makes a factor of 3.5 seconds. We see the pit lane already featuring some new cars there, the number 2 and the number 115. We see here incredibly close infighting amongst the ranks of the 5-Star Esports team. Carlos Disch and Jorge Van Herle clashing for position of third place. Behind them, still in the top 5 then, David Tanguay and Axel Cassier of Maloir Racing. We have trouble there. Yellow flags down through Piratella for Rafael Bayer in the Black Nitro Racing number 28 Lamborghini. Drops back in behind Hokianos Motorsports is Ivan Sanchez. One of the 2 4-man lineups for this round. The other being Team Raceline Motorsports. It has been a very bizarre start indeed, and I think we're about to see some fighting going on here. This is between Levi Warner and Michael Picconi. So, Del Ave Maria versus Fats GT in towards Ravazza. The Ferrari's up the inside, but he may have underdone his brakes. Oh, and he slams in to the 315, collects there. The back end of Alan Alexander forces him down past Brooklyn Donkin. And now, as we see Picconi rejoining the track from the third-person view, you can see just how close he is to his fellow Ferrari, the 123 of John Williams. Right behind them there is Jensen Santiago, pushing the Ferrari down the opening straight in that number 332 VEC Esports car. Ford versus Ferrari on the run in towards Tamburello. Meanwhile, up the line there, we can see a swarm of Euro Titans cars. Porsche, Ford, and McLaren. We see side-by-side action. Santiago against Picconi. Meanwhile, you can see right behind them there is that of John Williams. And this is incredibly close, incredibly brazen fighting. We're seeing in towards the Variante Villeneuve, very nearly contact between Picconi and Santiago. This is for 14th place, by the way. And they are absolutely mauling each other. In towards Tosa we go. And we see it's far from over. Ford's got the run over Ferrari at this time. They've got more grunt down low where it matters. That 5.4 chewing up the V6 on that Ferrari. That allows Santiago up the inside in towards Piratella. It's contact between the pair, and through goes the 1-2-3 of John Williams. It's contact between Jensen Santiago and Michael Picconi in towards turn 9. So you see there up the inside, the number 5 around the outside and slammed there. Those two put in a half spin, and then it snaps back violently in the opposite direction for Piccone. He now drops back in behind, by looks of it here. Two of the Nexus GT cars, Josh Wellbeloved and Ben Hart. Currently fighting Wellbeloved for position in that number 1 BMW. He's up the inside, then the outside at the Variante Alta, and does take 20... It says they're 26th position. We'll have to verify it, though, because that was definitely quite something. We see in the background Dennis Kuhleman side by side, very nearly there with Josh Wellbeloved. We see this is the scope of what's going on in the top 5 as the top 3 are starting to break away here. We're about to see a fight for second between Zolt Beefgartner and Jorbe van Herle. Meanwhile, we see in the top 5 here the brewings of a fight for the top 5 between 3 different parties. Malwar Racing's David Tanguay, Kieran McMillan of KTJ Motorsports, and Gianluca Zamponi of Exclusive Esports. Not too far away either from them. We must consider the potential 4th party you see looming in the distance there. The Ferrari number 313 of Cas van Veltzen of Euro Titans Endurance. Down towards Tosa we go then. So you see here with the Bentley and the Aston, 2 cars that were prophesized to be some of the best in the wet. We see only so far has that been the case for the 788 at the forefront of this race. Yellow flags are out. It's for the 787. Trouble down at what appears to be Tamburello there for Federico Zamblera. Not sure if there was an incident involving another car. We can see, though, for the BMW, he's gotten back up running and just over the nose there of Senna Broines with Team Raceline. Trouble for the 787. Where one car has been able to blossom in these conditions, the 788, the rest of the exclusive team are seemingly struggling here in the wet conditions in Imola. Silverstone was one thing when it was offering up torrential levels of rain, but really there is no Goldilocks zone to be found in a track as tumultuous in its corners as Imola. So you saw there a move up for 20th between Ben Cheeseman and Xavier Kugler, I should say. Meanwhile, yellow flags back out again. This time the 323 in trouble. That's one of the Fat GT cars. If we tried to catch on board with them at this time, I think we'll come up empty-handed, though, sadly, trying to figure out what's what. And it was Gase Bruce with Fat GT that ran into trouble with Ferrari. 8 minutes into this race, and we're still seeing a huge schism formed amongst the field at this time. We're back on board with the Malwar Racing number 119, currently up in that fight for 4th place with the Aston Martin of 5-Star Esports. It's the Battle of Britain here. Bentley versus Aston. Meanwhile, let's not rule out here that fight going on technically for 5th place. That's the position currently held by the 119 between himself and Kieran McMillan in the 37 KTJ car. That bright green BMW just over the rear quarter of the Bentley on your screens at the moment. Let's focus, though, on the fight up over his nose at this time. That being currently the fight for 4th place. Meanwhile, we see an advance there up to 2nd for Jorbe van Herle, now having overtaken Zolt Beefgartner with Tempest Motorsports. 5-star up on the front row of this race after just 8 minutes. We'll see how long that's likely to last here. McLaren against Ford is not a lineup often favored in McLaren's side. Of course, with Ford having quite considerable weight gain in the balance of performance, this could be the perfect storm to give McLaren a very solid result in today's race. Right now, it's a British manufacturer 1-2 here in Imola. So we still focus on with the fight going on for 4th place. That is soon to bleed over into a podium fight as both of them are gaining ground over Zolt Beefgartner. In the background as well, we can still see things starting to spread out just a little now between the remaining cars of that top 10. McMillan, Zamponi, Van Veltzen and Warner, namely in that question right now. So after 10 minutes of racing, we'll get a look at the grid in just a moment's time. We're still watching with that fight of 4th place. The Bentley has got straight line speed over the Aston Martin. So out through turn 1 on the run to turns 2, 3 and 4 as he washes out into the side draft of the V8 Vantage. Now onto the racing line with the Aston defending for the inside down through Tamburello. What can David Tanguay size up here over Carlos Dish? You see just up in front of them there, the remaining positions to the podium, still fighting for what is 2nd place at the moment, Jorbe van Herle versus Zolt Beefgartner. All of this has created the perfect set of conditions for that 788, who is now on his way up towards Piratella as we just round Tosa. So to give you a synopsis of the gap there, that is really quite something we're seeing. And it's practically handing the 788 their 4th race win at this time. They've completely vanished from the rest of the field, whilst the rest of the grid has ate themselves alive. That fight for 4th starts to dissipate for the 119 as the 112 starts to peel away from sight. There is now the consideration of that fight for 5th as KTJ Motorsports as Kieran McMillan gains ground over David Tanguay. We'll take a look though at the grid in the meantime. Florian Oxman leads with Exclusive Esports. Jorby Van Herle recently taking 2nd away from Zolt Beefgartner, now down to 3rd with Tempest Motorsports. Carlos Disch in 4th, and just to bring up the notion of that as well, we're back into the fight for 4th from the point of view of the driver in 5th right now, could be 4th in a moment's time. David Tanguay with Malwar Racing. Kieran McMillan in 6th place with Gianluca Zamponi in 7th place. Cas Van Velsen 8th, Levi Warner 9th, and Zen Vitus makes the top 10. Alan Alexander in 11th place with Jack Giles in 12th. Brooklyn Donkin in 13th with John Williams 14th. Jensen Santiago in 15th with Michael Picconi in 16th. Not too far behind them, Josh Wellbeloved in 17th place with Ivan Sanchez in 18th. Dennis Kullerman 19th and Ben Cheeseman in 20th. Just one moment on that, though, as I think we're about to see some more action side by side here in the fight to 4th place. Aston Martin against Bentley. Ford right over their noses here. The chances of a podium lay in their hands. Down towards Tamburello, taking the inside line, just snipping the nose off of the Bentley. A valiant defense by 5-star. We see KTJ Motorsports try to get the leg up here on the run down towards that of the Variante Villeneuve. This has bled into the fight of 5th place. Up the inside goes McMillan over Tanguay. Was a split-second decision there that has put Kieran McMillan into 4th place. 5th place, I should say, sorry. There's also in the background, we see an advance up for position there. Van Velsen versus Zamponi. We'll actually quickly cut on board with these two here, on board with the 789 attacking for the position he once coveted there. The 789 Gianluca Zamponi now having dropped into 8th place behind Cas Van Velsen. On their way in towards the Aqua Minerale, we do just quickly see here potential chances to fight back from the 119. The 37 a little bit sluggish there on the exit of the Aqua Minerale. This is back into the fight for 5th place here for Kieran McMillan. Looking to get up and alongside him is David Tanguay. The question is, do either of them yield on the run in towards the Variante Alta? The simple answer being no. Van Velsen very nearly onto the rear quarter of the Bentley as it nearly becomes 3 abreast on the run down towards Ravazza. At the bottom line of it all, David Tanguay returns to the top 5. Kieran McMillan will be scorching furious now in that KTJ Motorsports BMW. Cas Van Velsen joins the fray for a fight to the top 5. He looks at the inside here on McMillan. The question therein remains, down the opening straight, does he stand the chance? The question being answered very quickly there. Very likely. Puts himself front to rear quarter. Now side by side. Then back to front and rear quarter as the top end starts to creep in over that Ferrari. That also opens the doors here for Gianluca Zamponi and Levi Warner for that matter in what has been maelstrom for the fight of the positions in and around the half of that top 10. It is absolutely unbelievable just how close the drivers are willing to toe the line here in Imola. That fight going on currently for 6th place still rages on. Van Velsen v McMillan. Right behind them is Zamponi v Warner. That's set to become all 4 of these drivers ripping each other limb from screaming limb, all in contention of 6th place. This is truly a bizarre moment of motorsports here. One of the closest and most congested fights we've seen in this season so far. And let's not ignore what's going on up over their noses at this time, as in for the fight of 3rd place is Carlos Disch over Zolt Beefgartner. Nearly had a look up the inside, but just couldn't find it on the run through the Aqua Minerale. Tanguay makes the top 5 for the time being. McMillan has got the world's weight upon his shoulders to maintain 6th for KTJ Motorsports, currently division 2nd in the privateers. We see behind them a potential side-by-side move for Gianluca Zamponi, other Cas Van Velsen. Neither of them commit to the move there, back into single file on the exit of the Variante Alta. That does give opportunity over to Levi Warner, mind you, on the run in towards Ravazza. The Mustang, he's got straight line over the McLaren. And that is what he's using to great effect, but turning under braking just ever so slightly and collects Cas Van Velsen. It's a double collision down at Ravazza. Disaster for 3 parties in all. We saw there for Levi Warner, got the move up over that of Gianluca Zamponi. Tiny twitch under the brakes there, clips the nose, then slams the rear of the 313 of Cas Van Velsen. Unbelievable drama here in Imola. And at the bottom line of it, into the pit lane goes Cas van Velzen, enraged by what has just happened here. He has had such a royal fight in the top 10, and it has all crumbled in the span of 2 corners. Let's get a look up on what is now the new fight on the block here in that top 10, the fight of third. 3 parties in all. Right now, we see those 3 parties in play. Tempest Motorsports, 3rd in this championship, 3rd in this race right now, started 2nd. Zolt Beefgartner behind the wheel. Carlos Dish of 5-Star Esports in pursuit. A big step out there for David Tanguay with Malwar Racing, as we see up over his nose at this time. The Aston Martin had a chance to go around the outside, but just could not find the space at Aqua Minerale. Now on the exit of turn 12, turn 13, I should say. On the run in towards the Variante Alta. The Bentley still incredibly close to the Aston, which is incredibly close to the Ford. But their big step out through Variante Alta for the Aston Martin knocks him down a few thousandths over the Ford, and it invites in the Bentley here of David Tanguay to come and have a go. Will we see history repeat itself as getting onto the brakes here? The car doesn't make anywhere near as much of a fuss as we saw earlier on in the move between Zamponi and Warner. So you see here for Tanguay, much closer stuff indeed. He's up to 4th place and with a chance here to make 3rd over Zolt Beefgartner. He's leveraged that run out through Ravazza. We know the Bentley toe-to-toe with the Ford can match it for speed. As we get into the side draft here, he's on the inside. Can it be 2 positions for the price of 1 here for David Tanguay in the 119, currently fighting for 3rd place? The answer to that question seems to be yes. On the way through the Variante Tamburello, David Tanguay makes 2 positions, started the last lap in 5th, starts this new one in 3rd. Unbelievable stuff from Bentley. Meanwhile, right behind them, Zolt Beefgartner looks to be getting definitely some recent company from the 112 of Carlos Dish. We see here with the 112, and we've been trying to cut away so that we can see the drivers on a closer level. We do see trouble here. This is for Kieran McMillan, just momentarily. Drops now quite some distance off of Jack Giles, Brooklyn Donkin, and Levi Warner. So looking around the field then, we wanted to cut back onto the drivers so we could get some onboard footage. Oh my goodness, we catch on board here and the yellow flags do come out for the KTJ Motorsports BMW. Kieran McMillan in trouble. Once again, 2nd time on this lap here, that BMW has had a spot of bother in these conditions. Back in the green flags as he makes his way down towards the Variante Alta. He's currently 14th behind John Williams. Now trying to catch on with some of the nearby fights here. Gianluca Zamponi versus Alan Alexander is one on the bookings at the moment. We still see going on just up in front of them is the fight for 4th place. Carlos Dish versus Zolt Beefgartner. As we see here side-by-side action. Gioet Boris versus Ivan Sanchez. Boris getting the position up to 20th with the MSR team. Rafael Bayer could be into a fight here with Dennis Kuhleman in a moment's time. As we see, this is the fight currently going on for 4th. Beefgartner v Dish. Aston Martin versus Ford. We see that this is actually a drop down of position for Zolt Beefgartner. He's now down to 5th with Dish up to 4th. Behind them, we see Zamponi versus Alexander. That was a fight we were hinting towards just a moment ago. We might have to catch on board with them as things look to be floundering in the face of it for that Ford at this time. We see here, back on briefly with a fight of Bayer v Kuhleman. This is for 18th place on track. Down towards Tamburello. Ferrari and Lamborghini. Used to say Ford and Ferrari there, but Ferrari and Lamborghini. Also 2 great rivals in automotive history. We see them go head-to-head here. The 296 versus the Huracan Evo 2. Down towards the Variante Villeneuve. You see there, a little bit of trouble, though, for Bayer stability-wise. He drops a few temps away. We see behind them a fight here between the lapped 115, looking to unlap himself from the Holkianos McLaren. Ivan Sanchez behind the wheel. Being the gentleman that he is, lets through the 115 of Noah Haggard. You see here Ben Hart versus Cas van Velzen. You see Jack Giles facing off against Levi Warner at the back of the top 10 here. 2/10 of a second between these two. There are a few fights we do want to catch on with as and when we can. This was one of them for 6th place, but I think we'll take a stage here of the fight going on between these two. Jack Giles versus Levi Warner. Jenson Santiago not too far behind them at all in the 332 VEC Esports car. Just up in front of them as well, Zen Vitus with Race Vision Motorsports. In towards Tamburello we go. Going out wide though, that's Santiago with Ford. The number 332 car runs out wide through Tamburello, rejoins the track, might lose position out though to Brooklyn Donkin in the 314. That's closing in on him very, very quickly as we continue to watch here from the point of view of Jack Giles, Euro Titans number 316. It's Giles and Bowen behind the wheel once again, just as they were in Silverstone. Currently, this is in the fight going on for 9th place. They're defending away from Levi Warner of Fatch GT's number 23 car. And I must say, this has been a very exciting opening hour of racing. We're not even 30 minutes into it, so what a delight we have then to have 2 hours and 38 minutes more fighting before the checkered flag. We see very nearly a chance to go side by side, backs out of it, so that Levi Warner can have better access to the racing line up through the Aqua Minerale. Now, this was the same thing we saw leveraged in a few fights before. The question remains with the run up towards Variante Alta. Can he find his way up the inside? No, just too far away at this time. Following very, very closely here. I am informed as well of very close fighting going on up the order here. Most recently, David Tanguay overtaking that of Jorbe van Herle. Could we see some fight back here from the 113 as we're now on board with the 5-star number 113 car? Van Herle and Svenningsson having been taken for ransom here. What could very well be history's first console endurance series Bentley 1-2. If 2 hours and 37 minutes tell us any different, we could be on to a record here for Bentley. Their first ever 1-2 as a manufacturer. We see here for the McLaren, in these changeable conditions right now, the Bentley is just a little bit more planted, a little bit more hefty, as it were. And in spite of the fact that it is losing considerable chunks of weight, and the car is actually remarkably lightweight despite its enormous size, it still has the handling characteristics of a car much larger than itself. It's very boat-like. It's what gives it that affectionate name, the Boatly. And that Continental is just planted in the ground there. It's almost a British quality that we've seen reflected up until very recently with McLaren's rise to popularity with the 720S on your screens at the moment, that they prefer their cars to be a little bit more on the squat side. That's what we see in the Bentley and moreover in the Aston Martin, currently right up the back end of Jorbe van Herle. This is now one of 2 competitors for the fight of 3rd place. We were catching on board with Van Herle in the considerations of a fight for 4th, not for 4th, for 2nd. So we see there, that was an executive decision by 5-star. Jorbe van Herle moved to one side, allowed Carlos Diesch up onto the podium. Something awry then with the 113 at this time. Bear in mind, 70-minute stint limit. 3 pit stops for most teams. For the 4-man lineups, they've kneecapped themselves because they're going to have to take 4 to make sure all 4 drivers serve at least some amount of time in the car. Very curious decision then by 5-star. So you see here Josh Wellbeloved got up on the inside over Dennis Kuhlmann, but big trouble out through the Variante Alta. That does allow potentially some leeway here for Rafael Bayer. He's up past the Ferrari of NRW Performance's Dennis Kuhlmann. Does he get the run, though, up over the BMW Josh Wellbeloved? We try to catch on board with him at this time. We see Josh Wellbeloved down towards Ravazza. The Lamborghini just poking through into frame there, just over his rear as we make our way in towards turn 18. This is a 4-man fight for 17th place at the moment. Josh Wellbeloved of Nexus GT versus Rafael Bayer of Black Nitro Racing, Dennis Kuhlmann of NRW Performance, and Gioet Boris of Manti Sim Racing. Down towards Tamburello then. BMW against Lamborghini, against Ferrari, against Porsche. Heading into turns 2, 3, and 4. Yellow flags are out, though. We will have to address this one. Taking a look here, it's the 332 in trouble. That's Jenson Santiago. in a wounded VEC Esports car there. You can see up the road, Kieran McMillan and John Williams looking to get side by side. We look up the road here to see this fight now in the top 5 as Exclusive breach the top 5 with a second car now. Gianluca Zamponi up to 5th place. We see behind Zolt Beefgartner at this time, there's Alan Alexander, the wizard on water as we come to dub him here in TRTN. And especially on series run by NLRL. We saw his performance in Silverstone. And moreover, we also saw his performance in Kyalami on the Sunday League, first ever rookie to win outright since the introduction of the rookies category in Season 4. Zolt Beefgartner, another driver to have competed in Season 4 of the Sunday League, competed in the same category as Alexander. Now these two meet once again for their respective teams. You see here, Beefgartner trying to reel in Zamponi. Alexander trying to reel in Beefgartner. Very tough stuff here. We take a look at the telemetry. The last interval between the leading Bentleys at this time, 14.962 seconds at the last timing interval. Now, that will update just every now and again over the course of this race. That is definitely a talking point, though. 2 hours and 30 minutes, now with nothing to stand in their way. Is there the chance, then, for David Tanguay and for Axel Cassier to catch up to Florian Oxman and Fazzy Binks? So we see here, currently the fight going on for 6th place. We'll stay on board with these two for the time being. On board once again with the Tempest Motorsports car. Saunders, Beefgartner and Rosier in the number 30 for today's race. This is for 6th place, heading down through the Aqua Minerale. 14.974 seconds between the leading Bentleys. We were told to keep an eye and monitor that gap. We see side by side then in the fight for 6th. The Porsche around the outside, then to the inside of the Variante Alta. Has to skip up over those curves at the Ford with the slightly better run and more momentum to carry on the run down towards Ravazza. This could go any which way. We know Porsche are great on the brakes. We know Ford are great in the straight. We've got a combination of the two heading down towards Ravazza. Does he overdo it on the brakes, or does Alan Alexander take 6th place off of Zolt Beefgartner? It very much so looks to be the case there. Up into 6th goes the 315. But this is a dangerous spot to have overtaken the Fords. Down the opening straight here, Tempest has a chance to reel in the Euro Titans 315. Out through turn 1 we go. You see shifts for position as well in that time as looking here. Federico Zamblera now up the road from Brooklyn Donkin. We also saw that Kieran McMillan's up the road from Jensen Santiago. Not too far behind them, John Williams. We see behind them Michael Picconi. And by looks of it there is the 315. So that does look to be the case. That is Van Veltzen, if I'm not mistaken, behind the wheel at this time. He's down in 313, I should say, not the 315. That's the 313, so that is Cas Van Veltzen. I believe a lap down after his repairs. Zen Vitas potentially looking at a chance not far from now to come and have a go in this fight for 7th place against Zolt Beefgartner. He's currently still caught in the fight for 6th with Alan Alexander of Euro Titans Endurance on his way in towards the Variante Alta. Porsche versus Ford. They found themselves definitely quite closely matched over the course of this race at hand. Bear in mind, we're just coming up to the first 30 minutes of racing here in round 5. And it has been an exhilarating start to things here in Imola, with plenty more action hopefully to follow. We do see close gaps being monitored at this time, well beloved to Kuhlmann. And then from behind them, Boris and Bayer. Now, these four have been pretty close to one another for some time here. It's now jumbled up just a little bit. We see towards the back of that pack, Rafael Bayer. We see Gioet Boris trying his luck through the Variante Alta. That ultimately snips away that momentum that he's had over the 28 for some time. That does give an opportunity to Rafael Bayer to come and have a go for 19th place on this track. We also have close gaps monitored here. McMillan versus Santiago. We try to monitor every which angle. The 67 narrowly avoids contact. We go back on board with these two. McMillan v Santiago for 13th. Santiago around the outside and up to 13th place as we hit the Variante Tamburello. Looking up the order here. Returning to the fight of 6th place as it stays in stalemate. Meanwhile, up the order, we're starting to see the beginnings of a fight for 4th place. A little bit of a stutter there. Not sure what went on. 789 versus the 113. .2 seconds, though, at the moment between the two Bentleys. So the gap that the 119 has had for some time over Oxman, or started to build, I should say, on Oxman, is starting to wither just a little bit towards the end of this first hour. As we see here, two McLarens side by side. Jorbe van Herle versus Gianluca Zamponi. Fastest lap so far, still in the hands of the 787. Federico Zamblera started from the pit lane, mind you, with Exclusive Esports' BMW. These two still very close to one another, and the same story applies to that fight of 6th place. A lot of these fights staying very, very close to one another, but in this constant stalemate where no one side holds prime advantage over the other. They are still close to one another, and the chances for a fight are still there, but it's held in a very fine balance, subject to even the slightest of changes. On their way out, you can see there, that was the Nexus GT McLaren. Ben Hart. We do see the number 2 brought out the yellow flags. I believe that was just the McLaren leaving the paddock at this time. We do see on board here with the fight of 4th place. It's green flags into Sector 2. In the background, you can still see the fight going on between the Mustang and the Porsche as we stay here with the two McLarens up in front. In the fight inside of the top 5, there is still yellow flags out for Sector 1. We are going to try and monitor that there. It's the number 2. It's come to a dead stop after the pit lane exit, safely to one side of the road. So we see green flags are waved out through Tamburello. We see Jack Giles fighting with Federico Zamblera and Levi Warner. A 3-way split for 9th. So we're able to snap between these two fights here. Gianluca Zamponi and Jack Giles. Zamponi backs out of it there. Doesn't think of a move too early through turns 14 and 15, the Variante Alta. Very easy, especially for the McLarens there, for them to upset their balance. I think we're definitely about to see the fight kick off in a new direction here, as we're seeing Zamblera catch up towards Warner. That's definitely that much to be considered at this time. We see here the fight of 4th still measured in stalemate. We go to catch on board then with the BMW. We just quickly see here a fight for 21st for Stecke v Brunes. But the real talking point then is going to be that fight with the BMW. And let's get on board here with Federico Zamblera in the 787. Looking to run things high and dry through turn 1. Then as we hit turns 2, 3, and 4, looks to be up the inside. And I think that strategy might just work out here for the fight of 9th place. Federico Zamblera up and over, I should say, the nose there of Levi Warner. I thought we were going to be seeing side-by-side action, but what we do see, very delightfully there, is some great fight back, but ultimately came up to be in contact between the pair on the exit of turn 4. That kicks the doors open for Jack Giles to come and have a go. Side-by-side with Levi Warner in the background at this time, catching on board with the Ford currently in this fight then. On with Levi Warner as he drops now behind Jack Giles. Looking to the nearest fight then. And apologies for the sudden teeter around as we go to catch on board here. It was one of several fights, but this is what we were trying to find. Back on with the fight of 4th place, Van Herle versus Zamponi. We see slightly better of the two for the run. Up out to the Acqua Minerale. Gianluca Zamponi could be looking up the inside again, just a little too far away though. He had the run of it. That difference in setup is helping Jorbe van Herle at this time. He's just able to give a little bit more onto the throttle just that little bit earlier. And because of it, he's up by just over half a second to the 789 behind him. In towards Ravazza we go then. And he holds on to 4th place. Looking around the field, back in with this hectic fight towards the back of the top 20. Rafael Bayer versus Josh Wellbeloved. Meanwhile, Dennis Kuhleman has carved his way upfield from 18th at the moment. Now up by 1.5 seconds to these two on the run down through the Acqua Minerale. On board with Black Nitro Racing's number 28 car. See just how dicey things are there through the Variante Alta from the driver's point of view. Such a narrow line to follow there. Deviation on either side can lead to disaster. We'll catch on with these drivers in a moment's time. We do want to take a look here. Side-by-side action between two Fords. As now up to 12th place goes Jenson Santiago over Brooklyn Donkin. Euro Titans number 314 drops down to 13th down the opening straight. The chances remain for an opportunity to fight back through Sector 1. So we stay on board just briefly here with the number 314. Currently fighting for that 12th place spot on the grid. Down towards turn 7 we go. Can't find any chances of it up the inside at the start. We'll see what the exits are looking like. We see there, better exit for the 332. So things are looking rather grim here for Donkin and Rod. Looking toward where the nearest fights are again. We are again back on board with these two McLarens. Gianluca Zamponi still chasing down Jorbe van Herle. There are some other fights going on track as well, so we're going to have to get back onto the sort of main feed just to see where everyone is positioned on the field at this time. We see that the fight for 4th place has started to feather out just a little bit here between these two. 113 and the 789 starting to grow a bit of a distance from one another. You see here fighting between the number 5 and the number 123. That's for 15th place. Michael Picconi versus John Williams. We do see as well, we see here now lapping past one of the Fatch GT Ferraris there. Zolt Beefgartner being pursued very closely, mind you, by Federico Zamblera. Levi Warner trying to catch up here to Jack Giles. Can't find any ground of it. Still out by half a second at the last interval. We see with that fight of the two Ferraris picking back up again now in the favour of Michael Picconi as he's got the slipstream in on John Williams, but might be just a little too far away to size up and move in through Tambirello at this time. With a bit of a snap of oversteer though, the 123 is going to be losing some of that momentum it's carried on the run in through turns 2, 3 and 4. That could give up an opportunity to go side by side in towards turn 6. And through we go then at turns 5 and 6 for Michael Picconi. Back up to 15th place up over that of John Williams. Great move then for the number 5. We see in the meantime, by looks of things here, on board with the 787, the number 28 has been in some serious trouble. That's down the line for Rafael Bayer by looks of things there. And it does look to be just a little bit of damage to discuss. We see now Zamblera to 7th with the fastest lap so far. Zamponi still chasing for 4th place on this track. Jorbe van Herle has had a great defensive performance so far, 40 minutes in to the 3 hours of Imola. With Zamponi still on his tail, the question remains for the Belgian talent in the 113. How much longer can he hope to keep this up, with the 789 seeming to show no signs of slowing down? This is also creating a great opportunity just behind them as well to start reeling in that gap for Alan Alexander. The 315 just stranded in between major fights in the top 10 at this time. Wants to try and break away from the advancing BMW behind him, the 787 of Federico Zamblera. See in the background here some action. Jack Giles and Levi Warner. Warner now up to 10th, Giles in 11th. You see in towards Piratella they go. This is in the fight for 10th place at the moment. Just quickly checking with these two again. Of course, this has been an area where that number 789 has had the run quite regularly over the 113, but seldom has ever made a move on it. We see in the background, this is picking up to be a full-scale fight here for 6th place. This is Federico Zamblera versus Alan Alexander. We know the Porsche can have the BMW under the brakes, but heading in towards Ravazza, is that a risk at this time? The 315 is willing to take. He gets onto the brakes, but even later onto the brakes goes Zamblera. He runs into the gravel, so that gives the 315 the run back up towards 6th place. He's definitely put him in a bit of a catch-22 there. You cannot try to outbrake the Porsche, but you can certainly outrun it, and that's the case for BMW right now. With the Porsche holding up and around the outside, trying to be on the inside. We see up the order as well. Exclusive still fighting on that second row, trying to clash here with 5-star for 4th place on this field. Fails to make any ground of it, but in the background, we see an advance up to 6th on that 3rd row for Federico Zamblera. Pushes Alan Alexander down towards 7th place at this time. Zamponi could be finding himself a victim of his own teammates in a moment's time here as he's continuing to struggle to get around that defense from the 113. The 787, still with the fastest lap of any one car in this race so far, is gaining and gaining fast. Now out through Tosa. 52 minutes into this race so far. 2 hours, 18 minutes before the checkered flag. The 323 has been given a stop and go 30-second penalty for speeding in the pit lane. So that's most recent news there. We see down the line, that's for Gay Spruce Fatch GT, Ferrari number 323. See in the background here, the gap already having opened up between the BMW and the Porsche. We see he's getting closer and closer to his opportunity to finally strike here at the heart of the 113 down towards the Variante Alta. It is only a matter of time. If he does not make the move before that point, he certainly will try on the next run he has. You see here, looking at the inside through Ravazza. So this is for 4th place. He's up and around Jorge Van Herle. We'll see what the run is concerned with, though, down towards the Variante Tambirello. So we see now being invited into the slipstream. This is all in all still on that fight for 4th place for the McLaren behind him. He's really caught between a rock and a hard place here because here comes Federico Zamblera over the rear quarter here of his teammate Gianluca Zamponi. There could be an extra position up for grabs for exclusive. It's a bit of contact and the 113 goes around. Down at Tambirello. Through goes Zamblera to the top 5, but much to the chagrin of the 113. Look at this on the replays here. We were watching from the point of view of Gianluca Zamponi in the 789. As there was a little bit of contact, and then the 113 just spins around into the gravel, facing the wrong way. In the meantime as well, the 789 lost position out to the 787. Whether that was tactical choice or a battle that he had no chance of winning. But Gianluca Zamponi, he now tucks in behind that of Federico Zamblera. In the background, we see not far away at this time, Alan Alexander's 6th place now in this race after that incident for the 113. You see here one of the other fights going on at this time, still going on as it stands at the back of the top 10. Jack Giles versus Levi Warner on the exit of the Aqua Minerale. Up the field, we see Zolt Beefgartner versus what is now the 113. We see here this is the 114. We catch now to the 113. Jorge Van Herle down to 7th. Just before the 3/4 hour mark here in Imola. So you see here, this is Raphael Bayer and Maximilian Schimpf, Black Nitro number 28, fighting with Josh Wellbeloved of Nexus GT's number 1 car on their way in towards Piratella. Behind them, oh, what's going on there? That was for Senna Broines, just spun around down at Piratella. What happened there? I think there was one wheel on the grass, I think. I have to check here. So we're watching with the Lamborghini on our way in towards turn 9. So we see, okay. And yes, it was 2 wheels actually up over the grass when he got onto the brakes and the car just rotated itself around. It's a really sudden incident. We're seeing with this fight at the moment though, still going on between Wellbeloved and Bayer. This is for 18th place on the field. Still clashing heads. Not actually far from being lapped by the current race lead in the 788 Bentley Continental. Late on the brakes there for Bayer. But he holds on to the hopes of 18th. Meanwhile, yellow flags out for the number 2. Chinwei with Nexus GT's number 2 car. That's the second time that the number 2 has brought out the yellow flags. Meanwhile, Sander Versteche brings out the yellow flags up at not Piratella, sorry, at Ravazza, I should say. But has now gotten back running, so it's green flags once again here in Imola. You see here side by side, Jorbe van Herle versus Zen Vitus in towards Aqua Minerale. Up the inside goes the 113. Squeeze is there, but no contact between the pair. Jorbe van Herle to 11th. Just up the road, we're seeing Jensen Santiago, I believe they're being attacked. So let's go on board with the Mustang. That was by Levi Warner. Had the run of him in towards the Variante Alta. Meanwhile, Santiago stays very, very close indeed to Warner. We'll stay on board with these two. This is set to be very exciting here for VEC. Down towards Ravazza, the 332. Up the inside on the 23, with the 23s on the inside on the exit of Ravazza. The Fords potentially to clash heads here on the exit of turn 18. Great stuff indeed. Let's get on board with Levi Warner, or not, I suppose. He's coming into the pit lane. Much deserved rest there after that first stint for the number 23. Leaves Jensen Santiago by his lonesome to continue the push forward. You see here the 332. Santiago joined by Rob Eaton in this race. We'll catch on with them a little later on. Into the pit lane then we can see the 323 Geis Bruce of Fatch GT. He's joined by Levi Warner. We saw him into the pit lane just a moment ago after his first stint here in Imola. Gianluca Zamponi. Now lonely at the back of the top 5 there. Alan Alexander just under 5 seconds away from him, but same story applies to the car up over his nose there. Federico Zamblera, 4th place by 4.5 seconds. We see here, this is Jorbe van Herle in the number 113. Chasing down Jensen Santiago. Behind him, though, Zen Vitus, so it's a three-way split here for 9th place. Ford, McLaren and Ferrari, 3 juggernauts of ACC's current meta. All of them having a bit of a tit-for-tat there out through the Variante Alta. So looking around the field for where the nearby fights could be, we see here, though not necessarily a fight for position, pressure from behind for Carlos Dish. Spencer Brown, the number 23 car, now taking up the slack from Levi Warner's great opening stint there. Rejoins the field 21st so far, but is back on the climb. The 787, you got to hand it here to Federico Zamblera. Looking at the lineup as well, they brought in for this round. These two, and so far in this first stint for Zamblera, before he hands over to Will Friedman, he has come from the pit lane to 4th place with the fastest lap. I mean, it is unparalleled performance we're seeing here. It's a pity that he did not start the race from the grid, as otherwise it would have really been quite something to behold up at the front there. I definitely could mind the 787 would have been fighting with the 788 at this time. Of course, 2 hours left to go. He's got the pace for it, but pace to crack this kind of a gap, it's very rarely sighted, even in a championship as grandiose as this. But nonetheless, that 787 is actually not too far off the chances of a podium right now. 5.9 seconds behind Carlos Dish. And for Aston Martin, they find themselves in a very unfortunate spot. They're hoping for worse weather, knowing that's where the V8 Vantage excels, as we saw back in Silverstone at round 4 of the championship. We do hear the sound, the very distinct sound, mind you, of gravel rushing there. And that was for the Ferrari down the line. Not Niels Baslier, no, but I believe, yes, it was Geis Bruce in the pit lane at the moment. Josh Wellbeloved. Minor damage there on the number 1 rear quarter. We do see close gap at this time. Dennis Kuhlman and Gio Boris Into the pit lane at this time goes Alan Alexander. A great opening stint then for the 315. See, they're forced to cut the Variante Alta was Dennis Kuhleman. Gio at Boris will be seeing that, and he's not going to be particularly pleased with what he's seeing so far. Also in the pits then. At this time, okay, so no, it's just the same two drivers from before. Well, Beloved and Alexander. See here, Jorbe van Herle versus Jenson Santiago. This is currently for 8th place. We'll just quickly stay on board here with the 113 in towards Tosa. Goes up the inside very, very late on the brakes. Does he hold it? You can see a little stab of oversteer. The Ford's got the run on him up towards Piratella, so this could get dicey here on the run up into Sector 2. They're coming up on lapped traffic. Great fight back then by Santiago. Van Herle holds close to him. 9th place at the moment. Briefly was up in the scope of 8th in that fight with the 332. Up through the Aqua Minerale, we see running out wide the number 2 of, oh my word, that was Nexus GT. Very nearly slapped doors there with the 332. That would not have been pleasant for Jenson Santiago. In towards the Variante Alta. We see, yeah, hop, skip and leap there for the McLaren in the background. That could be a turnaround. Very nearly was in the number 2 just behind them. In the pit lane at the moment then, or I suppose I should say on his way out of the pit lane, is Sebastian Plotnik. Having swapped in for Zen Vitus. James Mason's on his way out after Noah Haggard's first stint. You see Casey Malz is in. Now he's got a choice of quite a few drivers here, looking at the Team Raceline lineup. Actually, wait, no, it was, yeah, I'm being silly there. That was Senna Broines coming in, and it is now swapped over to Casey Malz. My mistake. Also into the pits at this time, we see in is Jenson Santiago and Jorbe van Herle. So Rob Eaton likely to get behind the wheel, and the same story applies there for Van Herle. We could be seeing the emergence of Elias Svenningsson in the 113. 2 hours, 7 minutes left to go. Coming up on that first big wave of pit stops. We're seeing a few of those early doors ones, namely this being the most recent among them. So you see both of them from the pit lane at this time. Also coming in, Majestic Racing, number 94, Xavier Kugler. New driver with the team, number 94 in just in between those two. So you see there dropping off the jacks. Goes Elias Svenningsson on his way out of the pits, following in his trails. Actually having overtaken them in the pit lane, so very cheeky there by 5-Star Esports. They got quite lucky with the pit placement, and I believe, no, Santiago is still behind the wheel, so he's held on to another stint before he hands over to Eaton at this time, but Svenningsson takes up the slack from Van Herle. In terms of that gap between the two Bentleys at the moment, that has since grown out to about 16.7, 16.8. So you see here the emergence of a fight on the podium. Carlos Disch defending away from Federico Zamblera. .789 into the pit lane at this time. We'll stay on board with these two, though. I think we're about to get into the mix of things here for a fight on the podium. On with the 112 then. Dishin Yasarevic behind the wheel. Currently fighting for third against Federico Zamblera. Will Friedman as the other driver for the 787. So you see there, the BMW's got the run of things in towards Piratella. This could be over before it's even had the chance to start, but running out wide, the pair of them go through turn 9 and descended upon him in less time than it took for us to even react there. Fastest hand in Imola, Federico Zamblera. That is some Wild West stuff from the 787. That has took us, and I imagine especially so the 112, by quite a great surprise. Looking around the field then, into the pits at the moment, quite the ensemble of cars. Zamponi Kuhlman, McMillan, we also see in the pit lane there as well. Oxman is in. We see in the background the leading Bentley into the pit lane. Florian Oxman is in. What would be the call then by David Tanguay and Malwa Racing? They stay out to go on to lead here. So this is a curious one to see. What are they going to get up to in the next 5 or so minutes? Bear in mind, stint limit was set at 70 minutes. They've got until about an hour and 50 before they have to come into the pits or face the consequences. Going up into the lead then goes David Tanguay. Federico Zamblera stays out. Carlos Dish stays out to form the basis of our new podium for the time being. The question is, when will we see the return of the 788 to the leading position? We see that Holkianos joining them in the pit lane, the number 11, one of the new cars on the block here for round 5. In the pits then, Ivan Sanchez. And much as we saw there for that of Senna Bruyne swapping to Casey Miles, Holkianos have quite the ensemble choice as well. Taking a look at their lineup here for round 5. We see Sanchez in at the moment. Javier Alonso, JM Quito and Sergio Belda all waiting for the seat. We'll see exactly who gets it, if any of them do, after he exits the pit lane. We also see another wad of cars in. So whilst we see Oxman double stinting, he's on his way back out. Jack Giles is in. So too is Zolt Beefgarner and Brooklyn Donkin. We see there the number 11 is on its way out, having swapped over. We'll see to whom, though. On the exit here, looks like JM Quito, yes, behind the wheel of the number 11 as he takes to the track on his way out now. Zolt Beefgarner, he's got the choice of Adam Saunders and Bailey Rosier. For Jack Giles, pretty sure he's got the choice, yes, of Archie Bowen. So we'll be seeing a swap over there. For Gioet Boris, he comes into the pit lane. We'll discuss their options in a moment. For Brooklyn Donkin, he's only got one other choice, that being Kieran Rodd. In the 314, Rafael Bayer comes in. His other choice is Maximilian Schimpf, whom we've yet to see on track at the moment. Giles does swap, so Bowen's in the seat. Rosier swaps in from Beefgartner. See them there being intercepted by the 114. The leading Bentley, mind you, the number 119 at this time, caught in and amongst the traffic. So this strategic call by Malwa is in an attempt here to sort of close the gap in on that 788, which does find itself at least some decent way down the order from where they started things. Now, that doesn't look like an awful lot when you consider they've been leading by double figures. For them to have dropped out of the podium entirely does represent quite the significant drop in that first pit lane run. It was shorter than expected, and there's been no driver swap so far for Oxman at this time. So we've not yet seen Binks in the car in this race. Hopefully to see them then in the next pit lane run in about an hour's time. See here, navigating traffic, Federico Zamblera. We must say that the podium do not have an easy task of things at the moment. All 3 of them caught in this significant wad of traffic here. Very hard for them to make ground. For Tanguay, this is great because he's already managed to clear the majority of them up over his rear. So for Zamblera, he's the one having to deal with the consequences before he makes the initiative to come into the pit lane. For Carlos Dish, he's just far enough away from it to not be affected by it right now. Not until he gets toward where Zamblera is, if he can get to him before the pit lane run. Down towards Ravazza. Meanwhile, we are still seeing quite a lot of fighting in that pack of cars here. Rosier fighting with Brown, fighting with Svenningsson and Bowen for that matter as well. Very close stuff. Skeen not too far away at all either as he swaps in for Alan Alexander. Into the pit lane goes Federico Zamblera and Ben Cheeseman. Jenson Santiago looking to intercept Ian Skeen here. Porsche versus Ford. It's pretty one-sided in the straightaways, but under the brakes, it's a different story. Coming down towards Tamburello. What can Skeen do here over Santiago? He holds it side by side. They bump doors in through turn 2, and it's contact. Ian Skeen turned around by Jenson Santiago. That got ugly very, very quickly, mind you. And he's not going to be happy at all. That's going to be an immediate complaint then to race control over that, because there was some force behind that one. He kept the foot in. You can see it on the Mustang. He kept the foot in. After he made the first contact, he just powered his way out. So you see here, he holds onto it, a bit of a bump. Then as he rejoins, bang, slammed over the rear axle, and then keeps the foot in, shoves him all the way around. Get out of my way, he says. Well, not sure what to make of that incident. Controversial indeed, and we're not even at the end of the first hour. So you see, just out past our current view of things, we were watching there with Bailey Rosier. We see the fight going on here between Bowen and Brown. The fight of 9th place here between the 23 and the 316. As we come down towards the end of the first hour, we're still waiting to see the rest of our pit stops. So we're going to wait and see how that unfolds before we give you a run of the grid at this time. Strategy is still playing a heavy hand, especially up on the podium right now. We've still yet to see. The number 67 is in. That's MSR. 119. Could we be seeing considerations for the pit lane entry here for the leading Bentley? Not this time around. The number 1 does bring out the yellow flags down at Tambirello. And actually, no, yes. So the 119 is in. It's just a very late entry to the pits. In goes David Tanguay. Carlos Dish potentially stays out by looks of things there. And yes, he does. So Dish stays out. 5-star take the lead. Yellow flags have been cleared for the time being. Florian Oxman in the 788. Not too far away at all from the 119. Now, very likely to retake the lead. The question now is by how much of a gap is he going to have it over the 119 by the time it leaves the pit lane. Cas van Veltzen, we're also told now, is into the pit lanes as well in the 313 Euro Titans Ferrari. As you see here with the 788 on board then with Oxman. So yes, the chance is absolutely there. He's going to overtake Tanguay, but now begins the conversation. How much of a gap is he going to have over the 119 by the time it comes out of the pit lane? Now, he's looking to bring things down well below 16 seconds as he's cleared off of the jacks. Axel Cassier hops in now into the 119 after a great opening stint by Tanguay. That gap now 14, now 15 seconds, 16. So yeah, it's not gone particularly well in that first pit stop for the number 119. Now 22 seconds as it clears the pit limit lines. So we see here for D still leading. Oxman set to retake the lead, still yet to have taken a driver swap over to Fazzy Binks. Is about to return though under strategy into the second of 3 hours here in Imola to the lead of the race. David Tanguay does drop back into things though. And I should say this, in second place. So Malwa still are looking for their best result of the season so far. But not if Will Friedman and Federico Zamblera have anything to say about it. And believe me, on the stint they've had at the start of this race, definitely have a thing or two to say. Gianluca Zamponi, double stint by the looks of things there, the 789, currently 5th, sandwiched in between Friedman and Rosier. So we still are yet to see a few more pieces drop into place. We see here Michael Picconi into the pit lane. And if he hasn't already, I believe Kieran McMillan to be double stinting at this time. We see on the exit there, Majestic Racing's BMW being released into the wild. Now getting behind the wheel of that is Maximilian Koenig. In terms of nearby fights, you'll be looking up back towards the top 10. Svenningsson drops considerable distance over Brown. You see, this is at the moment Santiago v Bowen. Santiago most recently up to 9th over Bowen. So we saw in the pit lane that 5-star was able to get the leg up over VEC in the pits. Ultimately, this has done little to soften the blow of what things have been like so far for the team. When we see Carlos Dish in, the hopes right now for 5-star, this is damage control after what's gone on for the 113 earlier on in this race. They are looking to at least put a car on the podium. So they're aiming at 3rd place, but it's going to be a tough crowd to control when you consider Will Friedman and Federico Zamblera. They started from the pit lane and are looking right now within the conversation of 3rd place. And that is truly bizarre. I don't think there's question, if any, on what the driver of the day is looking like at the moment, because so long as they see the checkered flag, my money's on the 787. You see here, still watching the fight of 9th place, Jensen Santiago versus Archie Bowen. On his way down through to turn 1, just on the exit of turn 19. For those joining us just now, it was a very, very hectic opening hour here in the 3 hours of Imola. Quite a lot of battling going on. Major controversy from quite a few of the teams. Big trouble for 5-star as the 113 got into serious contact with, I think it was, I'm trying to remember now, I think it was the 787, not 100% sure. Again, so much went on in that first hour. It's very tough to keep track of it all. So do look forward to watching this one back later down the line. It was a brilliant opening hour of racing. So much to pick apart there. We were watching just a moment ago with the fight of Archie Bowen via Jensen Santiago. Very soon, is that going to become the consideration of a fight with Elias Svenningsson as the McLaren continues to hemorrhage time away from Spencer Brown, who's actually got a sizable run of things over Bailey Rosier. So the two Mustangs could be getting into a bit of a civil war here. We see Carlos Diesch in the pit lane. Oxman retakes the lead. Cassier looking on the chances to come up to second place. We see Will Friedman right behind them here. Could interrupt what was Bentley's chances of a first ever 1-2 in both this series and ever in terms of TRTN coverage. I'm sure in the past in other series out of our field of view, Bentley have done this many a time. It is just such a brilliant sight though, after so many years of doing commentary on console ACC, to see it happen in real time. So we're going to catch on board with Friedman because this is shaping up to be a very exciting fight for second place. Let's stay on board then with the XCL number 787. Exclusive Esports' Will Friedman and Federico Zamblera. These two have put on one hell of a show from the pit lane, mind you, up to third in this race right now. And as we see that, I was just taking a sip of my drink, and I look back down and I see descending upon them instantly, just as they've done before. Descends upon the 119 and now up to second place. Very nearly spat my drink out at the sheer disbelief, but it's the same area of the track that they've been attacking people point blank in milliseconds, it feels like. One of the quickest dives for a move we've seen of any driver on this grid comes from both of these two in the 787. That seems to be run and done then for the fight of second place, already having put nearly a second on the 119. What on earth have they been feeding these two to make them this fast? Michael K18 asking, what's the drink? Red Bull. Lots and lots of Red Bull. The amount I've consumed, I'd be surprised I see my 30s. I'll be completely honest with you, but that was the drink. In that last lap, you can see the factor of very nearly 2 whole seconds in difference on pace. Now, we must consider as well that last lap definitely could be chalked up to the fact that Cassier was still just on his way out of the pits. It was a slower exit for the Bentley. I wouldn't disbelieve that, though, just on paper. So you see here, new fight coming up. Civil war for Ford. 3 Mustangs head-to-head here for 6th place. Closest among them, the fight between Spencer Brown and Bailey Rosier. You can see Jensen Santiago of VEC Esports not too far away at this time. And looks to be Kieran Rodd fighting with Elias Svenningsson very soon. Those two getting closer and closer at this time. The 314 looking to have a go at Tambirello on the 113. Actually, I believe we can, if we get lucky enough here with the timing of it. Yes, we can actually cut across both fights. We see here from Santiago's point of view, up with Rosier and Brown. And then we can look behind, because they're all Fords, to see the other Ford of Kieran Rodd fighting with Svenningsson, who is out sideways through turn 6 on the run to turn 7. Could there be the chances here? Squeezed all the way to the right-hand side of the track. Holds the inside there. 113 getting his elbows out, but the 314 has got more torque on the run uphill towards Piratella, so this could be dicey between Rodd and Svenningsson on the run up towards Piratella. Doesn't make a move for the inside just yet. We'll stay on board with the 314 just to see how this one pans out. On board with Kieran Rodd, and much in the same vein as we saw there in the fight between the 119. And oh, never mind, because it's gone all manner of out of shape there. Somehow recovering the car and still going is the 314. I was about to say, much in the same length that we saw the fight between the 119 and the 787. But there, it went south, contact, then second contact. It actually rights him. He self-rights him almost. And then on the exit of turn 12 and 13, he's back up and running. That is truly quite a bizarre thing to see indeed, but not to take away from the fight going on here. It's side by side, Santiago against Rosier. Out through Ravazza we go. What can Rosier do on the run down towards turn 19 to retake position from Jenson Santiago, as reeling into frame there is Spencer Brown. A civil war for the blue oval down through turn 1. As we see here, in the rear view mirror now, very much so a presence alongside him. That's Spencer Brown looking to go around the outside at Tamburello on Bailey Rosier. This is quite the exciting spectacle here for any Ford fans tuning in to watch 4 of these 7th generation Mustangs go head to head. It's all American V8 Thunder on the run in towards turns 5 and 6 at the Variante Villeneuve. Staying on board then with the privateers at Tempest Motorsport, caught in this 4 Mustang fight for 6th place. Up through to turn 9. Flatch GT still sizing up a chance here on Tempest. Meanwhile, it's VEC Esports to take the leap here. Jenson Santiago opening the taps up over the number 30, struggling to find the same kind of pace down through Aqua Minerale. Rosier forced into defense against Brown and Rod. Up over the curbs of the Variante Alta, we see just over the rear view here for the Tempest Motorsports number 30, just how close the number 23 is in that fight for 6th place. I would say this is less so a fight for 6th place as Santiago continues to escape sight here. And I'd say we're more looking at a fight for 7th between the 23 and the 30. We see into the pit lanes goes Josh Welbelove, taking his pit stop with Nexus GT, and we see this is about to be what looks to be coming to a head of a fight for 7th place. Rosier holds the inside down towards Tamburello, but had the run on him all the way down the opening straight is Kieran Rod in the 314, not Kieran Rod, the number 23, I should say, of Spencer Brown. My incredible mistake there, but nonetheless, they are still fighting side by side. We watch between our fingers here to see what unfolds, as now I can say Kieran Rod is joining this fight to put himself side by side with Tempest Motorsports' Bailey Rosier. Minor contact between the pair through turn 5, then turn 6. Oh my goodness gracious me, wrap your head around that one. Meanwhile, if I'm not mistaken, it's yellow flags for the 787. Do my eyes deceive me? Get a look at this. Go to find that BMW. Yes, off at Alta. It's trouble for the BMW. Number 787, Will Friedman, drops down to 5th. What on earth happened here for Exclusive Esports? Is ace in the hole. That 787 started from the pit lane and is now in trouble. They drop in behind Riyad Yasarevic and Gianluca Zamponi, now out of the podium entirely. Exclusive had traded one car for another, though, on those podium positions at this time. Gianluca Zamponi takes up the charge of 4th place. Riyad Yasarevic, now 4th. Takes up the charge of 3rd place, I should say, not 4th. Riyad Yasarevic now 4th, as Friedman drops to 5th. That's not to distract us of the fight going on here amongst the Fords. As we now hurry back over, we do just quickly see scatterings of some fights going on around the field at this time. I think one we did scroll past on our way over was this one here, Svenningsson v Bowen, the back of the top 10. But let's go and catch back on board with our Fords and see what is going on here. Spencer Brown at the forefront of the charge then. As we see here, just out back, side by side, Rosier against Santiago in towards the Variante Tamburello. Meanwhile, off in the back run, my word, that was Svenningsson. That was Elias Svenningsson all the way into the gravel in the number 113. That's big trouble for 5-Star Esports. Great news for Archie Bowen, because that's a free position, not one that he has to worry about fighting back for. In the background, you can see it. That's disaster brewing for the 113. He hit the wall between turns 4 and 5. That could give up position over to Kieran McMillan, and it's even more contact as he continues to fall down the order. Svenningsson is fading. What on earth is happening for that 113? That first sector was something hellish in nature, and he's down to 13th. Meanwhile, the 28's in trouble. And if I'm not mistaken, that's Rafael Bayer and Maximilian Schimpf. Meanwhile, here with the forward, Santiago gets the leap on Rosier. And that could be another position up for grabs here for Archie Bowen. We're trying to snap our heads around here to try and find the next fight. We see here, up into ninth goes Archie Bowen. Very little fight back from Bailey Rosier. Meanwhile, we see here, the 3-2-3. Oh, yes, no, that's Gase Bruce. Fats GT in trouble. We try to snap our heads around again to see what is going on. There, getting back up and running, the 3-2-3, momentary yellow flags in Sector 1 into Sector 2. We see side-by-side action here as lapping out past Salvatore Borgetto is Axel Cassier. I'll tell you what, folks, I'm getting a bit of whiplash here. This is a lot to process, not a lot of time to process it. Wow. Okay, so back on with this fight here for 6th place, Spencer Brown versus Kieran Rodd. Meanwhile, Jenson Santiago now holds sizable ground over Bailey Rosier, who I should say has now retaken position off of Archie Bowen. So you see here, this is the fight going on down towards the back of the top 10. 9th place between Tempest and Euro Titans on the exit of the Variante Villeneuve. Down towards Tosa we go. We see in the background there Niels Baslier and Kieran McMillan. We've got word in as well over what's gone on for Svenningsson. He's got steering damage. And that's in his actual setup, not on the car itself. So in through Sector 1, he had very little ability to control the car because his hardware was failing on him. Out through Turn 9. And actually, I think we're about to see even more of that trouble for the 113 as the yellow flags are back out again. You can see they're stranded after Turn 7. Trying to get the car running is Svenningsson. This has been something of nightmare for the 5-star esports team. Svenningsson and Jorbe van Herle were strong competitors in that top 5. So now I'm told that issue has been fixed, but it has cost them considerable wads of space on the grid. They actually stand to lose out 13th right now as they've allowed in a chance to be intercepted by Sebastian Plotnik and Race Vision Motorsports. This has not been a great second hour so far for 5-star. We see here for Riyad Yasarevic, he drops out of the podiums for 5-star esports. That position now being taken up by Gianluca Zamponi. So now we take a look at where the field currently stands after what has been incredibly hectic racing here just before the halfway mark of round 5 of the championship, and with Florian Oxman leading in a Bentley 1-2 right now. Axel Cassier of Maloir Racing's solo entry for round 5, normally a 3-car lineup, just narrowed down to the 119 due to availabilities in round 5. Cassier second alongside David Tanguay in the 119, and then we find behind them Gianluca Zamponi in 3rd place for Exclusive Esports, still yet to have swapped over to his teammate in the 789. Riyad Yasarevic finds themselves in 4th place at this time. Will Friedman 5th with Spencer Brown in 6th. Kieran Rodd right behind him for the fight of 6th. He's currently 7th with Jenson Santiago in 8th. Bailey Rosier 9th. Archie Bowen 10th. And Niels Baslier close behind in 11th place. Behind them, Kieran McMillan, you can see close at hand there in the 37 KTJ Motorsports BMW as we head down towards the Aqua Minerale. That's trouble. Yes, and I believe it's so for which one was that there? Santiago. Had them mixed up for a moment. I saw the splash of dark blue and I assumed it was the Fats GT car, but no, it's the 332 of Jenson Santiago. Big trouble then for Santiago. Oh my goodness and gracious me. What was that in the background there? The number 2. What happened there for Ben Hart? A little bit of hydraulics there for the McLaren. Very strange modification indeed. Down towards Ravazza. You have to excuse me a moment. I have a little bit of a sore throat coming into this race. So you see in the background here going on right now the fight for what is currently 10th place on the circuit after that fallback by Santiago down to 12th place. Now inheriting 10th is Kieran McMillan. Niels Basselet right behind him in 11th place. And Jensen Santiago in 12th. Elias Svenningsson 13th. Sebastian Plotnik 14th. Martin Kramer in 15th. Salvatore Borgetto in 16th. Hans Hussen in 17th. Kyle Jenkins in 18th. Cas van Veltzen 19th. And Maximilian Schimpf in 20th. JM Quito 21st. James Mason 22nd. Alan Alexander 23rd. And we see behind the wheel there Wust in the number 92 in 24th, having swapped in then for Gioet Boris with Manthai Sim Racing's number 67. Casey Miles in the number 60 car currently makes up 25th place ahead of Maximilian Koenig of Majestic Racing 26th on this grid. Case Bruce 27th, and there we see Ben Hart in 28th. We're down one car in this race so far. We see here Bowen versus McMillan in towards the Aqua Minerale. Very nearly contact between the McLaren and the BMW. Bear in mind, Basselet makes it three's company here at the back of the top 10. So let's get on board with the drivers from the onboard view to get a proper look at all of this fighting. Going to catch on board then with these drivers, hopefully not to miss anything along the way. And that we very nearly did, because on the exit of the Variante Alta, Kieran McMillan has got his chances stacked up against him here with Archie Bowen. Now side by side, potentially to take position down towards Ravazza. We see here, in towards Ravazza we go. Very late on the brakes, but into the gravel goes the 316 and washes out 2 positions. Now up towards 10th place goes Niels Basselet. Kieran McMillan up into 9th. So we see here, this is for 18th place, Jenkins v Van Veltzen. So we see off in the gravel there was Wust. I've just seen something rather funny there in the Twitch comments. I'm not of liberty to relay. That is quite impressive. That is quite impressive. So having a look around the field to see where the nearest fights are coming from. We are going to try and catch him with some of the other angles of it here. But for Niels Basselet, he's into the wall. Just as we catch on board, out through the Variante Villeneuve. Let's see on here. So we scroll around. We can still see the live footage from the Ferrari with Fats GT. So we catch across just on the exit. And there catches a tiny, weedy little bit of the curb, and it turns the car up and around, catches it so hard against the tyre wall that he was up off of all 4 wheels. Basselet are now down to 12th. What on earth is going on then in that fight towards the back of the top 10? Lord only knows here. But the case of Kieran McMillan, he'll be beaming ear to ear because he's up to 9th place and with very few left to oppose him for it. Archie Bowen nearest 2, and that's by 1.2 seconds. That falls into stalemate when you consider McMillan is gaining ground on Bailey Rosier. There could be the considerations in the near future then for KTJ Motorsports for a fight of 8th over Tempest. Bear in mind, this plays heavy implications into the Privateers Championship. KTJ looking for a division win then. That represents their 8th place, represents the forefront of the Privateers Championship in this race at the moment. So you can see with the pros marked by white, the Privateers marked by red. This is in for a division lead between these two. This could be quite exciting to see, so we'll be keeping a very close eye to the situation for 8th place as we continue to look around the data here. We do see very close fighting going on here. Ultimately, this is to pursue the 115, just getting around one of the 5-star McLarens we saw was Alan Alexander. This is the one he's trying to chase down, James Mason in the 115. So we quickly take another look into that fight for 8th. So right now, that fight between McMillan and Rosier represents one of the closest on track at this time. The other being Plotnik v Svenningsson as it stands right now, the 113. And the number 9 going side by side was a lot closer than the data would have us believe on the exit of Tosa at turn 7. We quickly see here, Rosier now losing out to McMillan, but he's got the run down towards Ravazza. So could there be imminent chances of fight back from Tempest Motorsports in towards Ravazza we go. McMillan late on the brakes, but enough to keep it within the white lines. Might have just taken the lead of the privateers side of things in round 5, and that he does on the exit of Ravazza. Kieran McMillan and KTJ Motorsports above and beyond in the privateers wing. Looking here with Svenningsson v Plotnik, it folds back out to a little bit of a farther gap now on the exit of the Variante Alta. You can see the 113 has a sizable amount of distance over the number 9. Looking in here, a bit of a stab of oversteer. Did upset the balance and confidence there of McMillan. That does open the doors up for Rosier to start reeling time back in on the BMW. Behind them there, we see Bowen v Santiago, a newly emerging fight for 10th place at this time. VEC Esports to go head-to-head with Euro Titans for 10th place. In terms of that gap previously between Svenningsson and Plotnik, at its closest it was 170 odd thousandths of a second, and now it's 1.7 seconds. You see, just snapping between these two fights here. I think we'll catch on with the one at the very back of the top 10. So we see here in the foreground, the fight between McMillan and Rosier. We do just quickly see here, Mason v Alexander. This is for 22nd on this grid through Piratella. We don't want to hold on to this for too long. There is still that 3-1-3 fight going on in the background that we really do want to see right now. So we see the 3-1-5 and the 1-1-5 in towards the Aqua Minerale. Very close to one another, but both of them waylaid of great results today, far out back past the back of the top 20. So we see here, for Santiago, up and past the 3-1-6. So sadly, I think we did, yes, miss out on that fight in our efforts to try and capture absolutely everything. We can only be so many places at once. A pity, but one of the cruel realities of only having one set of eyes. Were we a spider, this wouldn't be an issue. So looking around that field to see where the nearest fights are coming from. Of course, there is the 1-1-5 and 3-1-5 to consider, but far out of the way of a top 10 at this time. Either of those two drivers forsaken from where they were at the start of this race. So you see here for Riyad Yasarevic, 2.5 seconds from Gianluca Zamponi. No real indication of when will be the nearest opportunity for them to fight once again for a podium for 5-Star Esports. Getting a look back in just briefly here, the 3-1-4. We see Kieran Rods kept close company by Maximilian Schimpf, but this isn't for position at this time. And we can see the final remnants of the Ford Civil War still raging on. In terms of Santiago v Rosier, 1.6 seconds as it stands right now. So the chances right now, as we speak, for Santiago to leapfrog up to 9th place aren't particularly likely. It's going to take something seriously untoward to put Rosier out of commission of 9th place as of right this second. In the next 30 or so minutes, strategically, there could still be the chances that exist for VEC Esports. They've definitely put that chance on the table over the course of what is very nearly the opening half of this race. As we're coming up on that in a moment's time, we'll be taking a look at the grid at large once again in about 1 minute and 45 seconds. As we take a look around on the individual scale, we see that's the fleeting end of that fight. But we do have to quickly catch on board with that 1-1-5. Svenningsson momentarily brought the yellow flags out of Aqua Minerale. We're back into green flags now, but he's down to 14th place. It has been disastrous for the number 113. 1 hour, 31 minutes left to go here in Imola, and what has been one of the most engaged races of the season. This has been absolute madness, and we see very nearly, was it the same story there? nearly forced into the pit lane. You can see skirting the boards there on a run down past the pit lane. What on earth is going on here for Elias Svenningsson? You see there, just up in front of him, that's Axel Cassier. A little bit of grass on his right-hand side. Oh my goodness, you can see him wrestling that McLaren for even an ounce of control, but he can find all but none of it through Tambirello. Something is seriously wrong with that 113 out through Tambirello, very nearly into the wall. And his steering is broken again, according to informants. We have even more technical troubles on the 113, and he's about to potentially stand in the way of the progress of his own teammates at the 112. Riyad Yasarevic and Carlos Dish right behind him in the 112. He's got to get shot of the situation soon, and that he does, clattering the Audi Sport boards. Evidently not a huge fan of the Volkswagen Auto Group. Not many of us are. Even more trouble through Piratella. Oh my goodness, this is a very frightening sight here. You can see, watching the inputs, something is just awry. Something is not all there. Something is just not clicking with the 113 as he's wrestling this 550,000 euro racing machine for even a slight ounce of control. Oh my goodness. See there, Martin Kramer approaching from behind as we head into the Variante Alta. This has got to be a run to the pit lane. The car far too dangerous to operate for the 113 right now. Unless it suddenly fixes itself, things are looking very grim here for Svenningsson. What has come to be a very frightening chapter of his time racing here in Imola. The car now actively working against him. Now, according to informants, this is a steering system failure we're observing, and we actually do have yellow flags in the background into Rivazza. That was for Kramer, as it stood. And Martin Kramer now drops in behind Hans Hussen. So down towards 18th, that'll be up to 17th now, as Svenningsson manages to corral the car into the pit lane. So, out past the halfway mark of this race, things have definitely spiced up quite a bit here in Imola. Taking a look at the standings so far then, Florian Oxman continues to lead in a Bentley 1-2, with Axel Cassier in second place with Malois Racing. Gianluca Zamponi not far off of his current position, looking to potentially take up the chances of a fight for second place as we head towards the end of the second hour here in Imola. They're third at this time. Riyad Yasarevic in fourth. Will Friedman down to fifth after an incident down at the Variante Alta. They're in fifth at this time with the fastest lap. Spencer Brown in sixth place ahead of Kieran Rodd in seventh. Kieran McMillan in eighth. And Bailey Rosier in ninth. Archie Bowen 10th with Niels Baslier in 11th. We see into the pit lane goes Jensen Santiago. So Sebastian Plotnik looks to move up to 12th in a moment's time from 13th. Same story for Van Veltzen. As we see at the moment for the 313, a fair distance down the field. Might not be a shift of position. He's a little too far away to properly call that in advance. We do see here, though, for Sebastian Plotnik up towards 12th place. They go across the line. Santiago down to 13th. Van Veltzen currently 14th. Borgetto 15th. Hussen 16th. Kramer 17th. Jenkins 18th. Schimpf 19th. Keto 20th. Alexander 21st. Van Herle 22nd. Mason 22nd now, as Van Herle drops to 23rd, as it turns out, in the number 113. Vust 24th. Mals 26th. Koenig 27th. Bruce 20... Oh, hang on. Koenig 26th. Bruce 27th. Hart 28th. Did that shift as I was reading that? Or did I just completely skip a number? I'll take the latter, to be honest. I think I'm going a bit mental now. We see swapping in Rob Eaton in the number 333. But he'll be rejoining the field quite a few positions down here. We saw Hans Hussen and Salvatore Borgetto. Two very close in a fight at this time for 15th place in the twin Ferraris. Number 5 against the number 223 out through Tambirello. The number 223 very nearly taking a chunk of grass there on his right-hand side. Looks to be up and around, though, before we've hit the Variante Tambirello. Up towards what is now 14th place, actually, sorry, for Hans Hussen. Up over Salvatore Borgetto. We can see there, look at this block of Ferraris. I've just spotted this one. I don't know why it took this long for it to dawn on me, but there is a huge wad of Ferraris just outside of the top 10 all in a row. Niels Baslier, Sebastian Plotnik, Cas van Veltzen, Hans Hussen, Salvatore Borgetto and Martin Kramer. Six Ferraris there, just outside of the top 10. Not a great look when you consider we're at the Autodromo Internazionale Enzo Edino Ferrari. Not a single Ferrari's in the top 10, but they have struggled in the wet conditions here. You see here for Borgetto now having dropped considerable distance off of Hans Hussen. Fats GT number 223 car advances to 14th in this race. Still a few drivers we've yet to see driver swaps off of. Florian Oxman leading the charge is one among them. We've also yet to see a driver change for Gianluca Zamponi, Kieran McMillan or Cas van Veltzen for that matter. Same story for Gay Spruce, yet to swap to Mario Reutius in the number 323 Fats GT car. But trouble for him as he exits Ravazza there. Was in on the gravel. Stays out. Hour and 24 minutes left to go. In terms of that fight for second, it's getting livelier by the second here. Dropping to within a second for a moment's time was second to third. Let's go and have a look with either of these two parties here on what is set to become the fight for second place. We see here with Axel Cassier. Can see the distance between himself and Gianluca Zamponi. Slowly reeling him in. He's got the Bentley on the line here. And it's just reeling in the 119. Now, it's not going to be easy for him to find the space to get up and around this monolith of a car that is the Bentley Continental. In towards the Variante Alta we go. I will have to look back through my notes here because I think we are, as of right now at least, judging on the position of every car in that top 5 and where they're likely to be in the next hour and a half. I think we might be on for, and I'm going to look back through it, an all-British manufacturer's podium, which is a rare thing. I'm sure this has happened with other groups before, but the reason I point this out is because how many times do you see Aston Martins on a grid, let alone Bentleys? So it's quite impressive to see them and McLaren all contending. You know what? I think we've definitely seen that before. Coming to think of it, the McLaren era definitely has given us that at least once. At least once. It has to have been. We'll check in on that and report if necessary. At the moment then, out through the Variante Tambirello, Axel Cassier still holding off away from Gianluca Zamponi. See up front there's Florian Oxman caught between traffic, Rosier and Bowen. A fight we previously watched at the back of the top 10. There is also that consideration of the fight for fourth. Will Friedman versus Riyad Yasarevic. But no news yet on that either. Potential new fight coming up as well to be considered. Spencer Brown versus Kieran Rodd. Two Mustangs again to go head-to-head. That's for 6th. Other than that, taking a look around the field, not really much else to report. JM Quito v Alan Alexander could be one on the charts here. Just to point this out, pretty sure that's a new paint scheme as well for the 315. It took me a while to clock it, but that's a much darker blue than we're used to seeing on that 315. It was a bit of a lighter, almost turquoisey colour in the last couple of rounds, but it's sort of turned the brightness on the colours down by quite a bit. More on that in a moment, though. Yellow flags out in front. Take that as the colour of the day then. Yellow heading in towards Tambirello. Trouble for the number 67. Anti-Sim Racing in trouble on the exit of Tambirello. This does give an opportunity here to Alan Alexander to come and have a go as we're back into green flags down past the Variante Villeneuve to take a chunk here out of the number 11 up in front of him. So we see there, both of them having to readjust with the number 67 rejoining the track right in front of JM Quito. So we'll quickly stay in here with this battle just at the back of the top 20 on with Euro Titans as number 315. Looking up the inside in towards Piratella. Alan Alexander leaps up through then on JM Quito. Does he hold on to it after turn 10? Yes. You see there off in the background, that is Ben Hart Nexus GT's number 2 car in trouble. but is back up and running. Very little issues in the long run. Looking around the field, this is definitely the start of the fight for the podium positions that remain. Second place up for grabs then for that of Gianluca Zamponi, and with a bit of a wiggle there on the exit of Piratella, it has been made all the more easier for the 789 to creep in on the 119 down through the Aqua Minerale. We'll stay on board then with the exclusive car, and can we get the graphics up in time by the time these two get side by side? We've seen how quickly they've been operating today. They've been leaving very little up to chance. Down through the Variante Alta, on board with Zamponi. We saw on the exit of Ravazza, great exit for the 119. Was just able to keep a fair length there, arm's distance over the McLaren. In the last lap there, was actually slower than the Bentley by about, looking at it there, about 130 thousandths of a second. So trouble when they get into the actual close proximity stuff with a fight for second place, because they can't, again, find the space around that huge Continental. Bear in mind, the McLaren's hardly a petite car in its own right. This isn't exactly a V12 Varnage we're talking about. This is quite the wide car itself. So these two find themselves in a double negative. A lot of those overtaking opportunities can barely accommodate for cars of this width, let alone two of them side by side. So this has got to be played out a little bit like chess here. He's got to be thinking tactically. He's got to be thinking several moves ahead, because you only really get one or two chances. That's if they show up over the course of a single lap here in Imola when fighting with one driver. Now, there's plenty of factors that can play a hand in all of this, considering they're coming up on traffic in the next 18 minutes. That also could play a heavy hand on how this fight for second place goes. Half a lap up from these two at this time, I should point out, as well as the 788 on their way down to a Tamburello, as these two just get up and out of the Variante Alta. See in the background there, Riyad Yasarevic peels into frame, 4.5 seconds away from this fight for second. Out of Ravazza, not mirroring the mistakes of his last lap there. Gianluca Zamponi much cleaner on the exit of turn 18, stays closer to Cassier. In the last lap there, was faster than him by 0.03 of a second. So these two very closely matched when push comes to shove. Another fight to consider as well. Pardon me. Going on just behind them. Now dropped into by 0.9 of a second. We're talking about the fight of fourth place. Yasarevic versus Friedman. So whilst we're watching these two fight on what remains of the podium, on what remains of the top five, we're seeing all two the same here. Now in by 0.7 of a second. There is that much to consider at this time. To look in with the Aston Martin very quickly. Trying to catch on board here, Riyad Yasarevic. You can see just hanging in the shadows of him there. The 787 of Will Friedman catching up. Now, this was an area of the track that he had issue with before the Variante Alta. Still a perplexing incident that set them down this path at the back of the top five and looking to claw their way back up as we roll on to the last hour and 16 minutes of racing here in Imola. Do just quickly see as well, fight going on for 21st. JM Quito versus James Mason. In the talks of straight line speed, BMW's got it by the bucket form. We'll see what the 115 can do. Down towards Tamburello we go, up the inside. James Mason makes that one nice, neat and tidy, up to 21st. Jorbe Van Hurler tucks in behind at the moment on JM Keto. Just to quickly see with this fight as well, we'll bring up the full displays here just so that we can quickly snap between the fights as and when they're going on. Bear in mind, we have 3 fights here for the price of 1. In the time since, Gianluca Zamponi has overtaken Axel Cassier, and this is getting to be a little bit frustrating now how quickly they're making these moves up. They could be hanging behind for 5, 6 laps and then just drop on them like an anvil. It gets to a point where it's frustrating on our end to try and make sure we can capture absolutely everything when Exclusive Esports goes with this whole fastest hand in the West routine and takes about 0.5 of a second to actually make an overtake. That's the scary thing that these drivers face as well. You've got to see it from their eyes as well. It's a case where they can loom in your rearview mirror for a solid quarter of a race. One slip, they're there, side by side and gone. That's as quick as it happens, and it's surgical. We see this to be a habit now with a lot of the exclusive lineup. Their drivers take this mentality, constant pressure. If you can't glide past them, don't bother. Pressure them until they make the mistake and then get up around them. And you can't deny it's a working formula. I'm not saying it isn't. No one's saying it ain't. Lord, if it isn't surprising every single time. Zamponi then to second. We're watching here with Riyad Yasarevich and Will Friedman. We've had to cut away from the fight we were watching earlier on to make sure we don't miss this one in the top 5. So you see here on the run, down the opening straight, through to turn 1 we go. Then the 787 in the slipstream of the number 112. We see here for Will Friedman in the current fight then for 4th place. Down towards the Varianti Tambirello on board with the number 787. Was looking to go around the outside, tucks back into the racing line, knowing the Aston will have had to compromise on their line to keep the BMW out and away from them. It's just chipping away then. He sort of dug his hooks into the Aston Martin now and is just slowly dragging him down until he can get up and around him. And he'll do so very quickly as well. The exit of Tosa. These two still fighting all the meanwhile. There is that fight going on a little further down the order at this time. Currently on between Archie Bowen and Niels Baslier. That's going on for what is currently 10th place of the field. That is since massively distanced itself, with Bowen now up and ahead of Baslier by the looks of it there. Very nearly missed it this time. Not this time around, though. Now on with the second half of this fight here, the defending end. Riyad Yasarevich, the number 112 Aston Martin with 5-star esports, defending away 4th position from the advancing Will Friedman. And heading in down towards Ravazza, things could get ugly here under the brakes. Neither of them find much issue here. The Aston washing out just a little bit on the first part of Ravazza, but it's enough to hold the line in the second part. Out through turn 18, then up towards turn 19. Tiny little kick out of oversteer there for the BMW. Weather radar shows rain to continue for 30 minutes, but is not picking up. So the track is going to stay about as good as it's ever been here for the last couple of laps, especially in that second hour so far. It's not going to get much worse than this. And at the same time, it's not going to be getting much better. It is a case of adapt or die in a situation like this. Roman Palmer F1 in chat asking, what is the next track up next? Well, if I'm not mistaken, I'll double check this in just a moment as we stay on with this fight for 4th place, but I'm pretty sure we're heading to Monza. We'll bring up the calendar, of course, to see where we're off to next after this round. That'll come up in February. And as suspected, yes, the arrival of a new event here for the Console Endurance Series, the first of its kind since Season 1. We see the Monza 6 hours. So the Silverstone 6 hours, a brand new one this season. The Zolder 6 hours was a new one as well. The Monza 6 hours comes up on Valentine's Day, the 14th of February. Then we'll be heading back to a legacy round from Season 1. As we saw that big step out for Will Friedman. So nearly collected the back end of Riyad Yasarevich. And that does drop him down quite a few pegs there in terms of that fight. We'll catch up with these two a little while on from now as we try to take a look around to see where the nearest fights could be coming from. Now, there was one in the bag for some time here, and that was Spencer Brown versus Kieran Rod fighting on that third row. We can see currently having wedged their way in the middle. That's one of the traffic cars at the moment. I believe that's not Gay Spruce then, so that has to be... yes, that's the like of Hans Hussen. Now having been overtaken by his teammate there, of course, not trying to make things any more difficult for the other Fats GT cars. Spencer Brown does stand a chance here to be in the top 6. And now that the road's been cleared out between him and the Euro Titans number 314, he's got the chance that he needs. Back on board then with Friedman v Jasarevich. As we go to take a look on from a bit more of a personal angle here, so we can get some onboard footage from either of these two cars currently in their fight for 4th place. We see there, that's the Holkianos McLaren very nearly rejoining up in front of our drivers here in the fight of 4th place. Super late onto the brakes in through Tosa for Friedman. We'll stay on board, watching from his point of view in the 787. In towards Piratello we go, looking for his way at the inside. Now through turn 10, he'll be to the outside of the Aqua Minerale, but he's forcing compromise out of the 112. As you can see, he backs off the brakes a little early. He backs onto the brakes a little early so that he can drop into the racing line. He forces the 112 to go back up in front of him. In towards the Variante Alta we go. Again, this is an area where he's walking on eggshells, but it seems this time around he's got the run that he's been searching for so long. He does plant himself to the inside here, and he's got the run over the Aston Martin. So on the run down towards Ravazza, this is where things could definitely pick up in the fight of 4th place. Very late on the brakes between the pair. The 112 tries to tuck in behind to have a go at some fight back, but the 787 makes that nice, neat and tidy there. Will Friedman up to 4th. Meanwhile, we see, looking to unlap himself from Riyad Jasarevich, that's Cas van Veltzen in the background there, that Ferrari, the number 313 of Euro Titans Endurance. He's onto the grass, out behind the Aston Martin. He's not pleased. But of course, it is tough being a car trying to unlap oneself. It's the toughest position on the track by a long shot. No one's giving you the space that you want, and no one's going to be stepping out of their way, especially in the midst of a fight for 4th place, to be giving you space whatsoever. We do see quite a few cars now into the pit lane, so we cut away here from the view of things with the fight to bring up the displays and see exactly who's in the pit lane right now. Niels Basler is in the pit lane, actually currently on his way out, and following the 114 of Ben Cheeseman. We see JM Quito in the pit lane as well with Holkianos Motorsports. You see the 114 on exit. Cheeseman behind the wheel. You see there for Basler behind the wheel of the 123 follows in his wake down through Tamburello. Just quickly catching back in with what's going on here in terms of the fight for 4th, or what's remaining of the fight of 4th. 1.3 seconds of the last interval between Jasarevich and Friedman. Now, we're coming up towards the end of that second hour. The leading pair have still yet to swap the drivers out. We see Archie Bowen's back in. Could there be the talks of a move back over into the controls there for Jack Giles in the number 316? That's up for question at the moment. A driver we've also yet to see. Oh my goodness, they're threading the eye of a needle. As we saw, there was trouble for this one here. Wurst in the number 67 MSR car. That is big trouble there for the newcomers on the field. Kramer in the number 77. 316 potentially awaiting the acquisition then of Jack Giles. We see Riyad Jasarevich is in. Could Carlos Dish be getting back behind the wheel as we come up upon our last pits of the race for quite a few? Now, there is a pressing dilemma facing at least two teams on today's grid. Now, as you'll know, maximum stint limit is in and around the ballpark of 70 minutes. And as we know as well, in a 3-hour race, you'd be expected to pit realistically probably about twice And that's where you end up with these drivers with a 3-driver lineup, 2-driver lineup. That works out. You can have drivers either double stack and then pit, or you can have each driver of a 3-man team take part. But the problem is you have to field every driver that you enter into the race. So for 2 teams in particular, going to catch on towards the back of the field here. First of which is Holkianos Motorsports. The number 11 car we see here currently being driven by Sergio Belda behind the wheel is one of 4 drivers. We saw JM Quito, we saw Ivan Sanchez, we saw Belda. We've yet to see Javier Alonso in the car. He'll have to get in the next hour and 5 minutes. Otherwise, they face significant penalties for not fielding every driver in the race. And that's the same issue faced at this time by the number 60. That's the Team Raceline car. So Mal's behind the wheel at the moment. I think we saw Senna Broines before. I'm not 100% if we saw Thomas Romano at all, and that's the same story for James Hornell. So they do find themselves in quite a bit of trouble here with a 4-man lineup. They've kneecapped themselves, taking on more drivers than they'd need for a 3-hour race. This is a kind of driver lineup that we saw quite a lot of in Silverstone, a 6-hour race, double the length of this round. So we see Levi Warner in the pits at the moment, or on the exit of the pits, I should say, in 9th place. Cas van Veltzen still yet to have swapped over to Ben Meredith. Still long awaiting his opportunity to hop into the car. Now, a few more cars that are still yet to swap for drivers at all. Florian Oxman, of course, in the lead of this race. And taking a look there, it would have been Fazzy Binks getting into the driver's seat for Gianluca Zamponi. I believe it was Matteo Mastromauro we've yet to see from at this time. Looking at the XCL lineup, and yes, that is the case. We've yet to see anything of Matteo Mastromauro in this race. For Kieran McMillan of KTJ Motorsports, looking into their drivers lineup, we've yet to see Josh Hickenbottom or Taylor Wayne. So that's huge trouble for McMillan, because he's done, what, 66% of the race coming up on now as we get towards the end of the second hour, and there's still 2 drivers that haven't come out to play. So it's been a 1-man operation, but I think at this point, unless they pit twice in the next hour and 4 minutes, they're getting penalties at the end of this race. That's opening up the doors for Jasarevich. That's opening up the doors for Rosier. That's opening up the doors for Warner. Because it's about 130 seconds, if I'm not mistaken. It's a big penalty to have. We don't know whether or not that'll be cleared off by race control, because this is a conscious decision made by most teams. This isn't something that's, unless really prevalent mitigating circumstances come into play, that a lot of the teams can get their way out of. We do see up the road here Will Friedman fighting with Axel Cassier. This is big trouble for Malois Racing. Now, this isn't to take away from what has been one of their best performances of the season so far. We see Friedman into the pit lane to swap potentially back over to Federico Zamblera, and honestly, I have to say, these two again are easy candidates for driver of the day. There is very little, I would say, worth of a discussion of any other candidate, because these two started from the pit lane, and right now we're in arm's length of a podium, and that still stands an opportunity. You know, I put it on the table right now. I don't think there's gonna be a vote if these two finish on the podium. If they finish on the podium, that's it. Those are your drivers of the day. I don't have any argument about that, because how many times can you say you've come from literally plumb last from the pit lane, where you're not even starting on the same grid as the rest of the field, and to come up through and be on a podium by the end of a 3-hour race? Shortest race of the season, mind you. This is practically a sprint up against the rest of the calendar. That takes some serious guts to do. We see in the pits then at the moment, on his way out, the 787. We'll see if it's swapped over, though, towards Zamblera. We will get confirmation from the LED boards, if not by the refresh. So having a little look. No, Friedman double stacking to the end of the race here. So Zamblera did one hell of an opening stint. Friedman's followed it up with a whammy in that next stint, and now he's on to his second in this race, double stacking for his teammate. We saw them back onto the nose there of the Porsche of Alan Alexander. We also saw for some time in the pit lane Kieran McMillan having oh, hang on a tick. Oh, there we go. I had a bit of a heart attack there. Oh no. Oh no, don't tell me. No, hang on. We try to catch on board here. Taylor Wayne's behind the wheel. We can barely get on with him. Watch this. What? Oh. Where's he gone? Where did he go? There he is. And wait for it, wait for it, wait for it, wait for it, wait for it. Is he going to disconnect again? I'm not 100% sure. He's on the way out. There we go. So he's out past the 115, James Mason. I think that's fine. I think they're fine now. Okay. We saw into the pit lane as well during that incident there where we thought they were on their way out for a disconnect. Fazzy Binks now gets behind the wheel of the 788. That's their final pit stop of the race here. They fall in behind Axel Cassier and Gianluca Zamponi. Zamponi now leading the charge by 12.5 seconds coming up on there. That's 12.3 at the last interval. Any chances for that to move up to 12.5 by the time he comes to the end of this lap? That is staggering. Staggering, especially considering how good Bentley has been in this race so far. McLaren have put serious grief in their way. We see here Kieran Rodd soon to be intercepted by Fazzy Binks. Adam Saunders 0.6 of a second away from Niels Basler on the way to the Variante Villeneuve. These two close instead for a fight here, and we see Jorbe van Herle was chasing down for a time. Rob Eaton has now taken him for ransom there for 15th place. You can see quite the gap now, 3.3 seconds, my word, between those two. Binks hemorrhaging time in his opening lap away from Rod, 2 seconds now. Now on the exit of the Aqua Minerale, that gap looks to be growing between the 314 and the 788. Now, that is a terrifying sight, I should say, because you see there the ping warning for the number 788. That bar next to the manufacturer's logo, a little hard to see. You see that on this one it's yellow. That was in the red for a moment there. That's usually the harbinger of a disconnect. That's a scary, scary thing to see when this is the race leaders we're talking about in that 788. That would be the worst case scenario for them. Axel Cassier is in. Would there be the potential swap back to Tanguay for the number 30 we normally know for to double stack? We'll see whether or not that's the case. The number 119 currently driven by Cassier is in. Zamponi stays out. Rod takes up second place. Binks takes up third. Friedman not far off the tracks here of taking up fourth. Right now for Malwar Racing, their hopes sit upon the chances of a podium today. They want to gun for third place. It's going to be difficult for them to do so. Bear in mind, one of the major obstacles for strategy at this time is the outstanding 314. Still yet to have come in, if I'm not mistaken, there for Kieran Rodd. So we see they're leaving the paddock, the 119. Friedman in pursuit. I think, yes, the 787 is just going to get up and around him before he leaves the pits. And by looks of it there, Riyad Yasarevich could be moving into the top 5. By looks of it there, as he makes his way down towards the line. 112 alongside the 119, but the Aston Martin just has tons more momentum to carry. Gianluca Zamponi into the pit lane then. So for Kieran Rodd, he's 1.3 seconds away from what is soon to be, under strategy, as of right now at least, the race leaders. It's a curious sight, though, to see what the 314 will do with the opportunity here. He is fending away from the 788. Now, the nearest car in the Euro Titans lineup he can afford to give advantage over to by holding this one up would be Cas Van Velzen. But given that Van Velzen is still also subject to a pit lane run in the next 57.5 minutes and is down in 8th place, the chances that it will have any sizable knock-on effect is unlikely. Out through Ravazza, he'll have to just play for himself then. And let's see what Kieran Rodd can do. Plays for keeps here in the 314, I should say. Playing for his own sake. Half a second. I mean, the Bentley just descends upon people at this point. We've seen that to be the MO coming into round 5 for all things exclusive esports. They've just been leaping upon opportunities here, descending like shadows onto these drivers, and it's almost impossible for us to capture these overtakes 100% of the time. So we see here, close gap between Saunders and Basler. We do quickly see again with Fazzy Binks now taking up second in this race. Kieran Rodd leading the charge as of right now, down towards Tosa. With Friedman potentially up to third by looks of it. No, because the 789 emerges. Zamponi third at this time. You see here for Kieran Rodd. In towards Piratella, the 314. You can see there, was looking his way up the inside, the 788, just couldn't find it that time. And by looks at the current calculations of things, Exclusive are looking at a 1-2-3. We'll see, though, what the case is here for the 314. We see a bit of oversteer for Binks in the Bentley. So down across onto lap, I believe that's lap number 67 at this time. We'll see with these two here. Yeah, I think, yes, it is lap number 67. On board at the moment with Fazzy Binks in the 788 Bentley. See, looking potentially at the inside at Piratella. This has been a very favourable overtaking spot for a lot of the exclusive cars over the course of this race, but when gone up against Kieran Rod, it has been quite the struggle indeed for Binks. He might have his chances a little bit better on the exit of Aqua Minerale. We saw things were stumped just a little bit there, just before the Variante Alta. Very late onto the brakes, has to take a little bit of run off there. Caught up behind the 314. Brakes were doing very little to keep the car from the rear end of that Mustang. Narrowly avoided contact. Had to swerve left of the racing line. That does bleed out the chances of a fight for first, at least on track. Under strategy could be a different story, as we'll see what the going rates are with the 314 just up in front of this car here, the number 788. Because if I'm not mistaken, we're still yet to see. And yes, there goes Kieran Rod in. So Fazzy Binks and Florian Oxman move back in to the lead of this race. So you see here for David Tangray, now 4.6 seconds down from Riyad Yasarevic. At the back of what is currently the top five. Now, there could be some promotion of positions here with the 314 in for their last pit stop of the race. Right now for Malwa Racing, they're gunning for a top five. Now, we'll take a look back through their results in the last couple of races this season, just to sort of take a look at where things were concerned coming out of Silverstone, coming out of Bathurst, and sort of see what was their best result of the season. For the 119, they were 10th back in Silverstone, looking back towards Bathurst in the 4 hours in towards the overall championship. We'll just take a look here to find that the 119 was down in 16th. So they are definitely gunning for an improvement of results, at least in terms of recent trends. In terms of the whole championship, we'll try and find the data on that. But for the 119, things are still looking rather peachy. They're up to 5th, up and ahead of the 314. As of right now, we have now moved into the scope of a 1-2-3 finish here for Exclusive Esports. Will Friedman and Federico Zamblera up to 3rd, ahead of Riyad Yasarevic, but behind Matteo Mastromaro. Looking around the field, we do see actually a little bit of damage for Sergio Belda as it stands there. Holkianos Motorsport in a spot of bother. The number 11, 22nd in this race. You see behind them there, 9th place at the moment, KTJ Motorsports, is Taylor Wayne. Ben Cheeseman trying to unlap himself from Niels Bassler. Now, in terms of nearby fights, we're still looking around trying to find one, but we do find ourselves in what would normally be in a larger race, the strategic end of things, where things really start to spread out. Strategy and pace and consistency have now paid into this final hour, and we see what are the long-lasting results of it all when drivers are spread out. Really, it's quite a blessing in disguise when you find such cases like this, where you find drivers still close to each other after all this time. This is the fight of 18th here. Dennis Kuhlmann of NRW Performance versus Michael Picconi of Del Ave Maria. Oh, hang on, just a tick there. That's problems between these two. Get a look at this on the replays. We were just looking down at the data. We did catch in the corner of our eye what went on there. We just want to see it to believe it. Down through turn 7. So out through Tosa. 77 runs out wide. The number 5's on the inside, and it's contact, yes, between Picconi and Kuhlmann. So you see here with Michael Picconi. Now, I think they also find themselves in a bit of a problem here, because there is another driver at play in the Del Ave Maria lineup that we signed on today. We did all of the graphics for it, and we were taking a look through all of the lineups on the run-in towards today's event, and it still does leave a bit of a black hole in our knowledge. Fabio Silvestri, we've yet to see on track, to our understanding, and that would be your third driver. We've seen Salvatore Borgetta, we've seen Michael Picconi, but Fabio Silvestri, haven't seen him. So much in the same predicament that we saw earlier on, that has now been alleviated by Team Raceline as they've now retired from this race, but is much to the same issue that Hockeyanos have themselves in at the moment. These teams are taking on more than they can handle for this race, and now find themselves either at a point of compromise or penalty. In the case of Del Ave Maria, if they come into the pits now to field Fabio Silvestri, they'll drop out of the top 20. And in terms of the privateers wing of things, they drop out of the top 5. So they are in a catch-22 here. There is not a lot of options that include winning for this team. And obviously there are going to be circumstances outside of their control. Not every driver can make it to the race, but ultimately that's got to be a decision that that gets handled in sort of the fine print there. I'm not really sure how it gets handled by race control. I understand there's not the most lenient of policies when it comes to these sort of things unless it is properly outstanding, so that's totally up to them to figure out. Unfortunately, I don't have to see any of that side of it. Not anymore. So you see here for Cas Van Veltzen, he's being caught up by Taylor Wayne. So we see Van Veltzen's into the pit, so Taylor Wayne's going to advance up to 8th place. Van Veltzen is in, so there will be the pass over here to Ben Meredith. He's been waiting rather patiently here, 2 hours and 2 hours and 12 minutes as of right now to come into the seat and play in the 3-1-3. Same story as well for Mario Roitias, the teammate of Ghost Bruce and the number 323 Fats GT car. They've still yet to see any action in this race. 2 hours, 12 minutes, and not but a minute spent driving the 323 today. So as we see here, it's from the point of view of Adam Saunders, he'll be up to 9th place in this race with Tempest Motorsports. But ultimately, in terms of the privateers runnings of this race, they'll be losing out to KTJ Motorsports. Now, just to bring back up, whilst we've got the opportunity coming up on the last 3/4 of an hour of racing here, just to quickly bring back up the look of the Privateers Championship. Tempest lead by a country mile. NRW in 2nd place. Race Vision in 3rd, but I'm curious to see. KTJ Motorsports was a bit of a late entry into this championship, but if my memory serves me right, they are in the top 10. Now, with only 3 more rounds coming up after this one, what are their chances looking like to advance into a fight of the championship? Slim. Very, very slim. But the top 5, I would say, is well within grasp here. You look at the baseline, that's set by Del Ave Maria, 129 points. And I believe 9th place was KTJ. I'll have to double check. Yes, it is a case. KTJ 9th place with 57 points. So they're only about 70 odd off here. They can make that time up, especially given how topsy-turvy things have been for that number 5 team for some time here. 46 minutes left to go then here in Imola. Alan Alexander is on his way through the pit lanes at this time. Has he handed back over to Ian Skeen, I do wonder, or has it been a case here that he's double stinting to the end of this race? The 315, we'll have to wait and see. You see, though, he does lose out quite a considerable chunk of positions on track. As you can see there, just having got up past him was Rafael Bayer, so dropping down to 17th goes Alan Alexander. Meanwhile, for Bayer, he's catching up to Sander Verstappen at a rate of knots here as he tries to get up and around the number 2 of Nexus GT's McLaren. So you see here for Verstappen, number 223, Rafael Bayer right on his tail here with Black Nitro Racing. We'll stay on board with this one. In towards Tosa we go. We'll try to get on board directly with the Lamborghini just to see up and close the details of this fight, which we tried to cut around and find them. Of course, not a graceful form of menu navigation, but one that we've had to deal with over the oh so many years we've spent working with ACC. Now, as far as I'm led to believe, they categorize drivers based on when they joined and what manufacturer they're using. So that's why you always see when you scroll through all of the McLarens together, all of the Fords together, all of the Ferraris together, but then they rank that a second time on who joined first. It's a whole system that just makes no sense. And I think in an ideal world, it would have been by position, where, you know, you press RT, you go to 17th. You press LT, you go to 15th. You see here, decent run into Ravazza, and that brings him back in with Verstappen. In through turn 18, he's got the run. V10 versus V6, working with nearly double the engine. Practically pushing that Ferrari now. He's got to be careful with how sharp the front end on that Huracan is. Very easy to catch something on the back of that 296. He's keeping things incredibly close on the run down towards Tamburello. Meanwhile, Alan Alexander right behind the pair of them, only by a second. We see there, up and around goes Rafael Bayer through Tamburello. Great move there by the number 28. Kept his elbows out, went for it. Leap of faith of a move there, but a brilliant one at that. We see it in the background as well, mirroring the same, or at least trying to, was Alan Alexander. You can see side by side at this time with Sander Verstappen as he makes his way in towards Tosa. Alexander gets the move. Down towards Piratella we go. Rafael Bayer soon to fight then with Alan Alexander of Euro Titans Endurance. We'll catch on with these drivers a little later on, but let's take a look around the field to see where things are concerned in and around the top 5. You can see the distance there between 4th and 5th place, only really the scope of about one corner between Jasarevich and Tanguay. And then you can also see the gap up front between himself and Friedman, 2.5 seconds on the data there. Not too far away at all, with just under 3/4 of an hour left to go here in Imola. Ben Meredith versus Jorbe van Herle. This is for 12th place, so let's stay on board just quickly here with the 313. One of quite a few fights on today's field. This is for 12th place on the run up towards Piratella at turn 9. As we bring up the telemetry to the left-hand side here, just to see where the other fights might be. Of course, there's Alexander v Verstappen v Bayer down in 15th place. Further up from these guys at the moment, there is the considerations of fighting inside the top 5. We're watching here, though, with the fight of 12th. There's also the consideration as well of a fight of 10th. Niels Baslier versus Jack Giles. As we can see there, the physical gap not too far away whatsoever. But as we catch back on board then with Ben Meredith, we can see this is a fight flipped on its head as well. It's Ferrari against McLaren, with McLaren defending, Ferrari attacking. Then up in front of them, it's the inverse, as we see here. Just quickly catching on board with Jack Giles. Niels Baslier's Ferrari right over his nose there on a run in towards the Variante Villeneuve. Then out behind, you can see just entering that opening straight, a broadly different state of affairs, with Jorbe van Herle having more advantage in the straightaways over Ben Meredith. So we're going to actually cut on board with Jack Giles, I think, is going to be the going rates here. Or at the very least, try to catch on board with the Ferrari that he's chasing. That being Niels Baslier of Fats GT inside of that top 10 with 41 minutes to go. There is also the consideration as well. Hang on, just a tick there. Yellow flags. 789 in trouble. That's going to be one of the, yes, the McLarens. That is Matteo Mastromaro. So that pushes David Tanguay up to 4th place on the exit of Piratella. Moreover, the number 2's in trouble. That's Chimway in the Nexus GT car. Also having some trouble down here at the Acqua Minerale. What on earth just happened here? Matteo Mastromaro runs into trouble down at Piratella. That's invited Malwar Racing up to 4th in this race now, with 40.5 minutes left to go. Has that been the nail in the coffin? It doesn't look like damages there for the 789. You can never be too certain of these things. In the meantime, Jorge Van Herle still fighting with Ben Meredith. So you see here, this is... Oh, this is fantastic, actually. We get to cut between these two fights that we've been trying to keep on with for some time. The fight of 12th and the fight of 10th. You see here with Jack Giles chasing for 10th place over Niels Bassler. We're also keeping a monitor on the fight going on just down past them for 12th place. That's Jorge Van Herle versus Ben Meredith. In that last lap, Meredith faster by 0.3 of a second, just a little under 0.3 over Jorge Van Herle. 0.6 of a second between each other as they head down through Tambirello. Up in front of them, Giles getting closer and closer and closer. 0.4 of a second through Piratella, the same area of the track the 789 had trouble in just a moment ago. On the run in towards the Acqua Minerale. Up in front of them there, you can see Eaton and Piccone, 23rd and 18th. You see Rafael Bayer navigating traffic at this time. So you see here things get even closer in the fight of Van Herle versus Meredith. Down towards Acqua Minerale we go. The chances are absolutely there for Ben Meredith to come in and clash here for 12th place against Jorge Van Herle, but it's going to be tough to try and outrun the McLaren in the straightaways. We see here, with traffic up over their nose, it's not going to be a graceful run of things through Sector 3, with Chimway in the way there, in that number 2 Nexus GT car. We see here there is no way that he can filter back into single file with these two. He has to try to at least let that 313 up past him, and there's going to be trouble. Out through Ravazza, that seems to be the case of what he's done there. Meanwhile, in Giles v. Bassler's corner here for 10th place, very, very close through Villeneuve on the way to Tosa. Snapping between these two fights. It is quite curious to see, of course, that dynamic flipped on its head where you've got McLaren defending and attacking, and Ferrari doing the same. You see there, trouble out through, by looks of it there, that was out through the Acqua Minerale. Trouble for Sergio Belda. Very nearly fell in front of these two here on their fight through the Variante Alta. That could have been trouble for the 316. Jack Giles had to cut quite a bit of the curb there on the second part, out through what is currently turn 15. The case of Van Herle v. Meredith. Big step out on the rear end there. The 113 fishtailing out of Piratella. Could there be more trouble found along the way down through the Acqua Minerale? Not this time around, but he's lost quite a lot of steam in that middle sector. 0.2 of a second. The Ferrari slowly closing in here for 12th place. Looking on with their fellow drivers up in that top 10, just in the positions ahead of them. As they head down towards Tambirello. No advance there for the 316. Do apologise if it comes across a little bit jarring. staying on board with these two fights for so long, but they are two of the closest fights we have on track now. We'll take a look around to find some more as well, but we are curious to see how these two unfold. These are just outside of the top 10, so for a lot of these drivers, that does represent a solid chunk of points in round 5 of the championship. And we do have yellow flags out. It's for the 323, one of the Fats GT cars in trouble there. Just up in front of the 788 when that happened, down through Aqua Minerale. The 789 also had an extra spot of bother down between the two Variantes in Sector 1, but both of them have since cleared out. Mastro Mauro, he is bleeding time then. Something that I'm sure is of great fear to the 789 team at this time. Exclusive was still looking at a very solid point, so now this isn't going to do much to upset their standings in the team's championship, but of course they want all hands on deck, as it were, and they want all hands turning the wheel. They can't have it to where their drivers are struggling. That's going to be something they'll be immediately reacting to, if I had any imagination about it, heading in towards round 6 in February. So you see here with Van Herle v Meredith still at arm's length there. It is getting closer and closer and closer. We could be seeing now the advent of side-by-side action on the run up towards the Variante Alta. The Ferrari super close now to the McLaren. On the run through Variante Alta, turns 14 and 15. Meanwhile, in the talks here of Bassler v Giles, that has massively shifted out since to be the case where the McLaren now is well up and ahead of the Ferrari. By 1.5 seconds, by the way, as well. The 123 had some issues we saw as well, was also for the 323 down at the Aqua Minerale. So we stay on board with these two fights as we come to see what is of the retaliation from the... oh, my word. Have a look out in front there. That's Rafael Bayer. That's a lot of fishtailing for Lamborghini. Get a look at this. On the exit of Villeneuve, you can see he caught a little bit of grass. As we take a look back into the other fight, this is Meredith versus Van Herle. There, a bit of grass, comes back on, and there, swing, 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 and swings around. My word. That's violent. I mean, that's one of the worst qualities of the Lamborghini as well. When it gets into a situation like that, it is incredibly hard to wrestle it out. But ultimately, in terms of vehicle design, that's the trade-off you play with. You have a car be very short in terms of its wheelbase, and you have it mid-mounted, so you have this very strong center of rotation. It allows the car to have a lot of poke in the corners. This was the same kind of thought process that birthed the Lancia Stratos, a car that went on to be called the Widowmaker in rallying. So that was a very dangerous idea to develop a car that way. And in the case of Lamborghini, while it did work for them for quite some time, they're now starting to branch out in a different direction, with the Temerario being a little bit on the longer end, a little bit on the thinner end. They're not trying to be... like the Huracan. They're not trying to make this thing as wiry around the edges, and you can see there it does come to be a very difficult car to predict in the case of Rafael Bayer's incident down at Tosa. Riyad Yasarevic, he moves up to second in this race so far, with Will Friedman in the 787 down in third. Roman Palmer F1 asking, how do I join for the next race? What we'll do is we're going to put a link into the NLRL server. You can join through there, and they'll be able to, when they're available, walk you through the sign-up process. I'm pretty sure there is actually a page dedicated for that now on how to sign up to the races. In order to sign up to this championship, you have to be in that server, and then also you have to sign up via the sim grid, which is provided in the server as well for these championships. If you're looking for more short-form racing, you'll be delighted to know that there is such the position coming up very quickly. As a matter of fact, Season 5 of the NLRL Sunday League is only a few weeks away, and that will be kicking off on the 8th of February. For the first round of the championship in, I believe it was Suzuka, as the calendar ended up revealing. We see here, navigating traffic, Riyad Yasarevic. That was Sergio Belden. You can see sliding out in the background there. That was a huge knock of oversteer for Will Friedman. That forces him into the iron sights right now of David Tanguay. Am I being played a fool here? Are my eyes deceiving me? Or are we actually seeing fighting on the podium? Yes, your eyes do not deceive. The Bentley is charging to third place. Will Friedman struggling in the wet. The Bentley is gaining ground. David Tanguay has an opportunity to put Malois on the podium here in the Console Endurance Series. Perhaps their first this season by the looks of things so far. This would represent a significant milestone for the Malwar Racing team's development. They started out in and around the middle of 2025 as a team. We know quite a few of their drivers from our time participating in events with the Competizione Performance League. We've been covering their GT4 Pro-Am Cup America series, where we've got to see a lot of these drivers, including David Tanguay, make their debuts to the big screen. We saw him make his debut in Alton Park in Season 1 of that series. So we saw, oh my goodness gracious me, what was going on there up in front? The VEC Esports car, Rob Eaton, very nearly clattered with the... Oh my word, it did! It did knock into the 787 because through goes Tanguay. Hang on just a second, the cameras have got to be fooling me. Well, we sadly only got the trailing end of it, but I am absolutely gobsmacked as what I've just seen there. 787 is bleeding time. Tanguay is up to third. Jasarevich second. There is the chance of a Bentley 1-2 still on the charts here. 30 minutes to the checkered flag. 2.5 seconds and less divide Aston Martin from Bentley. So, apologies there for the interruption to answer the question on how to join the server. Let's just quickly drop a line for you here. Coco67188 asks, when is the next endurance season? Now, that's a curious one. I sadly don't have the answers to that question. In fact, I'm not even sure if there's right now even the considerations of a season 3 of the console endurance series. I sure hope there is, but as a third party, as a contractor, we're not privy to 100% of what goes on at NLRL. We're informants to a lot of their activities as their primary media partner, but in terms of when that would next be, it's a tough one to call. Looking at the calendar right now, this season wraps up on the 21st of March. So I'd give it in the ballpark, give it like a month, 2 months. It'll be in the summer. That's, I think, when it would probably, the earliest possible time for that to be. Because I'm sure that the staff and drivers want to take a bit of a break from this series. We might have something go on in the summer just to take up the Saturday slot for a bit. But endurance racing, I'm pretty sure by the looks of things, it's going to return. I have no doubts in my mind. But as of right now, we actually can't confirm that to you. I wish I could. Believe you me, I wish I could confirm that, but I'm not of liberty to do so, even if I had the information, and I don't. Oh, hang on a tick here. Trouble. Yellow flag's out. It's the 332. We'll go and catch on board here. I'm sure that's VEC Esports, if I'm not mistaken, actually. He's going to catch here with the Mustang. Yes, it's Eaton. Out between the two Variantes in the opening sector. Trouble for VEC Esports. What has gone on here? On board at the moment. You see here, Santiago and Eaton's number 332 Mustang stranded after turn 4. Well, we're not sure when that will clear out. The yellow flags do persist until that issue is resolved. So taking a look at where things stand here as we close in on the final 30 minutes of racing. Fazzy Binks leads the charge in the 788. Riyad Jasarevich in second for 5-Star Esports Aston Martin. David Tanguay in hot pursuit to potentially put Malwar up into a Bentley 1-2 in this round of the championship. Will Friedman in 4th position and close at hand behind there with the fastest lap of this race. Only a single corner away. And then we see further down the line is Matteo Mastromaro in 5th place. Levi Warner in 6th. Brooklyn Donkin in 7th with Taylor Wayne in 8th place. Adam Saunders 9th and Jack Giles in 10th. Niels Basler 11th with Ben Meredith in 12th. Jorbe Van Herle in 13th. St. Vitus 14th. Alan Alexander in 15th. Vestecher 16th. Picconi 17th. Bayer 18th. Cheeseman 19th. Kuhleman 20th. Haggard 21st. Belter 22nd. Boris 23rd. Eaton 24th. Kugler 25th. Bruce 26th. And Chimway 27th. Yellow flags now cleared on track. We're down to the last 27 minutes of racing. Some of the closest fights we saw there scrolling through. You see one here for 7th place, Brooklyn Donkin versus Taylor Wayne, KTJ and Euro Titans to go head-to-head for 7th place in the closing 30 minutes of this race today. Also further down the line, Sander Vestecher versus Michael Picconi, Fats GT and Delave Maria, pros and privateers to go head-to-head for 16th place out through the Aqua Minerale. This one indeed looking particularly close between Picconi and Vestecher on their run around the Variante Alta, the number 5, actually had the better run through the corner, but then on the exit is where the 223 was just able to open the taps up over him. In terms of that other set of fights here, we just saw one kick off and then immediately conclude. Mastro Mauro v Warner. More issues for the 789. It drops out of the top 5 entirely as Levi Warner of Fats GT puts the 23 in 5th. Washes out, though, through the Acqua Minerale. That could open up the suggestion for a fight back here by Mastro Mauro. You can see he's lost a lot of time over the 23. In terms of Wayne v Donkin, 7th place at this time. Not too far away from the site of that incident earlier for the 789. Down through Acqua Minerale. And then quickly back on board with some of the other fights here. We see a new one emerging, Zenvitas versus Alan Alexander. We also have going on behind as well, still going on as we speak, is Picconi versus Vesteka. It's contact between the pair. The number 5 turns the number 223 around and into the wall. Big trouble there. Meanwhile, Jorbe van Herle is into the pit lane. 25 minutes left to go. The McLaren is in for 5-Star Esports. On what is possibly a day to forget here for the 113 team. They had huge issues down the line with Svenningson's stint as well. It was a case where we saw the car suffer severe steering failures. And it was a very scary thing to see as well. Him try to wrestle that car back into form. It's been a day to forget for them. But all is not yet lost for hope in terms of the 5-Star Esports team. Riyad Yasurevich and Carlos Dish have gone above and beyond here. They may be 33 seconds from the leading Bentley, but they are about to put, in about 24 minutes time, if they can keep this up, they're about to put 5-Star on the podium. Moreover, they're about to put 5-Star on the front row. We have Master Mason 4570 making a start on LMU, maybe for endurance, question mark. I would definitely like to, by the end of 2026, be doing some stuff on LMU. I think we've been saying this for some time. We wanted to get LMU involved in our field of operations. I'm pretty sure this is a motion reciprocated by the folks over on NLRL. They've been wanting to get an LMU division started up for some time, but it's a case of trying to get that foot in the door. It's not as easy to start running things off of PC than it is on console because you don't have the adage of a tight-knit community like you do on console. This was a great fear and a theory once explored in great conversations with some of the people that I know from NLRL, and it was a case where what makes console sim racing so special compared to the wider scope of what you would get on, for example, say iRacing, is you're much more likely in this community to run into someone you know or have met before after your first couple of months racing. You're going to run into a lot of the same people one way or another. And for us here, we recognize a greater majority of these drivers from our various travels, commentating for various different leagues throughout our history, even as far back as when we were a league ourselves, offering up that service in terms of collaborations. That's what got us our foot through the door, really, in with GHR for their Xbox Endurance Championship. We covered Season 2 of that, and that was our first sort of big break as commentators here on TRTN, back when we were known as TRR. So a lot of these drivers we've met before. We met David Tanguay, as mentioned before, in GT4 in Alton Park. That was our first time seeing him on screen. Will Friedman we've seen before as well, as far back as I believe the XEC. Levi Warner, same story. We saw him back in his time, I think he was with Porsche way back when, in a long time ago in the XEC. I do distinctly remember a great fight with him in the Circuit of the Americas, if I'm not mistaken as well. Brooklyn Donkin, we saw him through the Sunday League in his entry to the Rookies Championship. Oh, hang on a tick up in front there. More trouble. By the looks of it there, that's for Chinwei. The number 2 just rolls onto the nose of this fight here between Taylor Wayne and Brooklyn Donkin. Fortunately gets himself clear of the situation before these two descend upon him. Adam Saunders, I mean, we've seen him as far back as I think it was, in fact, the XEC. He was with Tempest at the time. And moreover, we also saw him through Season 4 of the now defunct TRR Sprint Series. He was the champion of that series in Season 4. Jack Giles, we've seen through various avenues. I think we saw him for quite some time as ETE Giles. We used to pronounce him as ETE Giles, and that was in VSR. In fact, I think we might have even seen Giles before that point. I think this was as far back as the AXRL Southern Endurance Series. Oh, that was easily about 2 years ago now, so that's a long, long time ago. So yeah, back into what I was talking about in that conversation. Quite easy to get lost in the point, evidently, this far into a race. But as we stay on here with Wayne v Donkin, the issue that we had at hand wanting to get LMU on board is that you lack that community aspect when you go over to PC, because it's such a wide area to cover. You're not likely to start building these understandings of these individual drivers, these sort of bonds amongst the drivers in that paddock. A lot of these drivers know each other, they've raced with each other, they've probably fought for championships with each other on quite a few occasions in a few different areas. I just don't think you'd get that on PC. That's what makes console very special. So for LMU, we want to get LMU on board, of course. I don't know whether or not it's a time to do LMU maybe with only just 1 or 2 leagues and wait for it to come to console before branching out. I think that's kind of the strategy we want to do. We're waiting for that console release, which we know is coming up sometime this year, though currently no exact release date. We know it's going to be probably about Q2 of 2026, so you're looking there up through sort of April to June time. But then at the same time, you can make a counter argument that you can look at certain leagues, even on, like, say, for example, iRacing, and they already have an established history with a very small pool of drivers. But I feel like for something like GT, it's kind of hard to do that because it's such a popular thing. There's so many eyes gunning in the direction of GT racing and endurance racing on something like iRacing and LMU that not a lot of people are going to be familiars after a certain amount of time. I think you get a lot of come and go. You get a lot of like how we've had sometimes in the Sunday League. You have a driver show up for 1 or 2 races, and then they just vanish, gone forever. It's kind of hard to build the story of a grid when the drivers are so interchangeable in that sense. You'd have to go for something niche. But of course, this is all things that are being explored in the background. 18 minutes left to go then, and back onto the subject of the race. We've been watching here with Taylor Wayne versus Brooklyn Donkin for some times, here for 7th place of this grid, and it still represents one of the closest battles on it as we get into the final quarter hour, not far from now. Looking at things up in the top 5 then, things are getting rather interesting still as Fatty Binks continues to lead the charge over Riyad Yasarevic, with David Tanguay 3rd place, Will Friedman in 4th. Now, I should point this one out, that Friedman has not been able to make anywhere near as much ground as he'd like to over Tanguay since he lost position out. But that's the same story for David Tanguay. He's actually he's left more time out. He's sort of, what would be the word? He's hemorrhaged time away from the 1-1-2. So it looks to be, unless something stands into the way of it, a comfy P2 coming up not far from now, so long as Yasarevic continues to knuckle down. You can see the gap there, represented on the run-in through to Tosa between Tanguay and Yasarevic, so he's really not too far away, and it's the same story there with Tanguay to Friedman. It is still one mistake away from these drivers being side by side once again, much like how we're seeing here between Brooklyn Donkin and Taylor Wayne. So going to catch on board then with the, we just see here Ben Meredith about to be lapped by Levi Warner. Going to go catch on board though with that fight up close between the BMW and the Ford. Try and get it from the Ford's point of view so we can look over the rear. On board here with Brooklyn Donkin. You see there? Oh, it's contact. A little bit of a bump there between the KTJ number 37 and the Euro Titans number 314. Donkin's not going to be the most pleased about it. Fortunately, nothing really seems to have come of it at this time. Up through to turn 8, now to turn 9 at Piratella. This fight for 7th is getting a little bit more white knuckle with every passing minute here. Time is starting to become fickle in what was once 3 hours of racing. We're now dropping in not far from this point. to the last 15 minutes. Oh, hang on a second there. The MSR card just brought the yellow flags out. We were having another sip of our drink. Why is it every time we do that? We put the can down and then we see another yellow flag. Not a pleasant sight indeed, but it seems to have resolved itself. Number 9 car, that's Race Vision Motorsports Ferrari in trouble. Down at the Acqua Minerale. We stay on board here with the fight of 7th place still going on between Taylor Wayne and Brooklyn Donkin. As the two go side by side down in towards the Variante Tamburello, the BMW to the outside could have advantage up through the exit of turn 3 into turn 4. The 314 falls in behind, looking to get on the rear quarter, but just can't find the space of it. So a great move by Taylor Wayne of KTJ Motorsports up to 7th. Brooklyn Donkin falls in behind in the 314, now has to size up his chances with 15 minutes to the checkered flag on how do we fight back. In towards turn 7, here's his first opportunity among several. Already back on the fight here alongside the number 37. A drag race uphill, one that BMW seems to be winning at this time, up through turn 8 in towards turn 9. You see, better of the two lines as he washes out wide. Taylor Wayne couldn't find any grip on the far end of the track at Piratella. That invites the 314 straight on through. Very little issues whatsoever. Down through to the Acqua Minerale. BMW almost sliding through that corner. You can see it's uneasy in terms of stability down through turns 11 and 12 and 13. Down towards turns 14 and 15 here at the Variante Alta. Must say it's a broadly different scope of what we saw last season here in Imola. Back in Season 1, Round 1 of the opener of the Console Endurance Series. In a much drier stead here in Imola. This one has been battered through with rain throughout. Now, not as wet as Silverstone. There is the silver lining to this quite literal dark cloud looming over this track, that it has not been anywhere near as cataclysmically wet as Silverstone was at Round 4 of the Championship, but it has not been an easy ride for many. Wet races do bring out the most bizarre of drives, and it has not left us starving for action here in round 5 of the championship. Heading down towards the Variante Tamburello, there was the suggestion there by Wayne of a move back up the inside. He hops over the sausage curbs once, very nearly does it twice. But that's opened up half a second between himself and Brooklyn Donkin. This is all the 314 needs in this time to continue to extend that margin over. We'll see what they can do later on down the line. Let's get a look, though, around the field just to quickly immerse ourselves with whatever else is happening on track at this time. We do see a considerable wad of cars close to one another at this time. We see Zen Vitus was in trouble earlier on in the number 9 car. You see them about to be lapped past by that of David Tangro. In terms of that top 5 fight at the moment, again, hangs in a very uneasy stalemate between 5-star, Malois, and Exclusive for the remaining positions of the top 5. Fats GT are quite some distance away at this time, and they'll be happy to hold on to 5th place. TMX Phantoms in chat saying Binks dominating as per usual. I mean, it's... yeah, I'm not sure anyone's really that surprised anymore, looking at the way that they've handled themselves over the course of this season. I mean, that's the thing. It's lonely at the top, and being 30 seconds clear of everyone else on track, it's, you know, and I wouldn't say this is a case where it's like a turkey shoot situation. They've not come into this championship being far and away better than their contemporaries. This is a string of success that is very much so earned and is very much so gratified for the 788. It is not easy to come up into a field like this with as many solid talents on it. Drivers that are champions, drivers that are multiple time champions on this grid, and to go toe-to-toe with them and to do so in a Bentley Continental. I think that's what makes this story all the more compelling this time for Fazzy Binks, Florian Oxman and Nat Bennett, because last season they did it in a McLaren, and a lot of people, a lot of cynical people in the community would look at that and scoff, because it's easy to do that with McLaren. That would be the claim. But how many people can do it in a Bentley? Not many. I count 3. And they're in that car. 2 today, 3 last time. Very few people exist on a list that can do that. And that is impressive. Again, I would say that both them and, for that matter, Malwar Racing as well are sort of spearheading this renaissance, as it were, for the 2018 Continental. Roman Palmer F1 saying, do I need to write in Instagram or Discord to make a Discord? I don't really know if the avenue of Instagram, what is it going to be texting the Instagram account? No, it's through the Discord. Don't worry about you make the team on SimGrid, but if you want to register like team and the car and the logo and stuff like that, it's through Discord. So you see here, not far away from Tangray, 5 seconds, but again, almost perfectly maintained 5 seconds. I'll point that one out. With 10 minutes left to go, Will Friedman, fastest lap so far. Him and Federico Zamblera started from the back. Now, even in spite of the fact that they don't look at this time like they're going to be on the podium, I would still say this is a very, very easy driver of the day pick. I don't really think you have to take too long of a look around to see what they've been able to do. They started from the pit lane. So not even with the advantage of, you know, maybe they've disconnected and come back onto the grid. Oh, now we have to start from the back. At least then you get a rolling start. They started from standstill. Am I hearing this correctly off of Wishful Winnings in chat? Fazzy Binks is also doing the 6 hours of Paul Ricard at the same time. So, wait, hang on, let me just get this correct here. Binks is, so when the car's not being driven by Oxman, you're telling me Binks has gone into another lobby during a 6-hour race in Paul Ricard, hopped into what I can only assume is not a Bentley, and continued to fight. Bravo. Honestly, just bravo at that point. That is mental. Absolutely. I've never heard the like. I've never heard the like. That's multitasking that he's able to do all that. If he goes on to win that race, my word, hats off to you. Team X Phantom saying, my thinking is I'm hoping that XCL and Malwar Bentley can show people the meta cars aren't always the way we can get, and then we can get some variety on the grid. Maybe some Mercs, Nissans, and maybe an Audi. Yeah, I think in an ideal world, I think we'd all like to see a larger presence by some of the more unorthodox manufacturers. I think we've definitely had some good suggestions in the past to show that, at least here on TRTM, we can name a few examples of sort of what I would say is like non-meta manufacturers having a really good performance. I mean, for example, you can take a look at Porsche, for that matter. They've kind of fallen out of the meta with the 992. They're not given beneficial balance of performance 100% of the time. The car is very one-trick when it comes to learning it. If you can't hack it, it's not the car for you, and it's not a case where there's any area of compromise. We've seen that win in the Sunday League before, in a rookie season by Alan Alexander, outright in the wet against a defending Melvin Milliston, if I'm not mistaken as well. We've seen for Bentley several times this season, mind you, with this about to be looking at it the 4th time we see it, from this one in particular, a Bentley winning in an endurance race. We've also seen for Nissan winning in the VSR, V Race Club UK, V Simplo Motorsports Interleague at Silverstone. Cas van Veltzen drove Nissan to victory there. We've seen Mr. Scallops drive Nissan to victory in the HCCL Multi-Class Endurance Season 3 run of things. I'm pretty sure he also took the championship in Season 2. There is quite a few, and also, yes, great example there as well. Jason Bush in the Lexus RCF Season 2 Sunday League. Christian LeBay in the Aston Martin V12 Vantage Season 1 Sunday League. Meta cars, they're good, but they're not the world. You know, it's not the world's weight to drive one of them. I'd say that there are plenty of options that exist that people maybe just aren't interested in exploring because there's stability to be found. And I'm not judging people for choosing popular cars like the BMW, the Ford Mustang, the McLaren, the Ferrari. You know, these are all great cars, and by all accounts, use great cars. But I think there's always something memorable, whether you win or otherwise. We just saw that. Oh, hang on a second. That was Will Friedman. I saw that off in the background there. That's Villeneuve. Had it been a little bit worse off for him, that could have been 4th place for Levi Warner, but sadly I don't think it will be this time around. Anyway, back on the point we were making. It's not a bad thing to use a meta car, but I think it's always more memorable, whether you win or not, to be the one not using a normal car. There is memorability in exceptionalism. I think that's a good word. These are cars that stand out from the rest. I mean, for example, Lamborghini on this grid, the Evo 2 Huracan is a very mixed bag vehicle. We've seen it either used to great successes or very little successes at all. For Black Nitro Racing to field a Lamborghini in an endurance race was a tremendous risk, and they've not had it easy in this race, but they have shown great performance throughout. They've been constantly in the fight. We can see them still fighting right now with Zen Vitas, and bear in mind, Rafael Baez has been able to do all of that with damage on his nose cone. In fact, if my memory serves me correctly, I'm pretty sure Rafael Bayer got a podium in the GT3 wing of, if I'm not mistaken, the Carousel Cup. Oh, off in the background there, that was the VEC Esports Mustang. Off in the background, Rob Eaton out through the Aqua Minerale, stranded just after turn 15. Tries to get the car righted there. Is there steering damage there for the 332? He is really struggling to get the car back on track. We also chalk that up to a lack of available grip. Back on board here by the Vitas. It now swings back in favour of Lamborghini. I think we definitely could have a lot more variety on the grid. I'm quite happy with the variety we have now in this series. I think had this series kicked off a few years ago, you would have possibly one of the most boring grids of all time, because it would have been right in the meta for BMW and McLaren. You would have seen a grid of almost exclusively Beamers and McLarens. 2022 and 2023, it had like a stranglehold on ACC. It was a dark time, because every single grid at that time was 90% BMWs. We just seen actually a bit of trouble there. This was Gio at Boris. Whilst we've got the opportunity really to have a sort of chat about recent events, at least in the scope of NLRL, we take a look on board here with Malwar Racing. Of course, you'll note that Christian Lebay is not part of the lineup for the 119 this time around. He's watching from the sidelines for round 5 of the championship. But something that is rather curious to have come up, of course, we had the discussion for the whole second half, really, of Season 4, after the news came out that Lebay would be leaving Aston Martin, and then came through with the announcement that he would be moving to Jaguar, leveraging some of the data he had gathered over the course of the Jaguar GT3 Revival Series over on the Competizione Performance League to reinforce this decision to move to Jaguar. And then in the last week, as a matter of fact, I'd say the last 72 hours or so, the sort of news has come out, not officially announced, but when you look through the sign-ups page for Season 5 of the Sunday League, where he is set to make his debut with Jaguar, then came the sudden realization that he'd actually turned heel and gone to Ford. Now, it's going to be curious to see how that pans out for him. There was a lot of hope going in towards Jaguar. We had a lot of hype for seeing Jaguar on the grid. It was going to be great to see in the hands of Lebay, who went on to win in the Jaguar GT3 Revival Series in Competizione Performance League. You already put a pretty good showcase on the table of what he can do with the XK. To see all of that information swapped over to the Ford, and that should be, I'd say, a pretty early warning sign for a lot of people on Season 5 Sunday League grid, because one of the major reasons, and this is what he explained to us and to the wider grid as to why he was using older cars like the Aston Martin and the Jaguar for some time, was it's more fun. It's more interesting to use the older cars. They're rougher around the edges. It requires more skill to operate, and you can still get as much performance out of them, and it's a more rewarding experience to do that. But putting him in the Mustang is almost a cheat code by comparison, given how strong it was in quite a few different series. I mean, take, for example, the XCL Pro Series. The Ford has absolutely strangled the win rate in that series, even with, if I'm not mistaken, actually, I can't remember now, there was or wasn't a restrictor on that car, but even still, that Ford dominated, and I mean capital D, dominated that field for so long. Didn't matter what team was taking wins, whether it was Exclusive Esports, whether it was Fratch GT, whether it was VXS. It was, okay, yeah, we just seen there from Jack Darms in chat, no restrictor, so even more so there. It was a case where it didn't matter if it was VXS, if it was Fratch, if it was Exclusive Esports, it was Ford dominating in that series. So you put it in the hands of a driver who has already taken championships in the Sunday League without even seeing a race win. That's a warning, I would say, above everything else. That frightens me more than the Jaguar move. I think there's a great chance Season 5 could be a lot more of an engaged charge to the championship. I'd say after what has been 43 races of the Sunday League, we could be definitely long overdue the advent of a LeBay win. And could it come with Ford? I think the chances are likelier than ever now coming into Season 5. Because that's effectively the restrictors kicked off from that. He's been almost kneecapping himself for driving with Aston Martin. That was by his own choice. He wanted the challenge, and he was still able to deliver on 4 consecutive championship charges, 3 of which were runner-ups, and then 1 of which was the championship in Season 1. He's been able to challenge. He's been numerically within that fight every single season with Aston Martin. I think this time, this is war that I think is that is coming his way. So we see we're on to the final lap. We've been watching on board here, Jack Giles versus Adam Saunders on the run in towards the Variante Tamburello. We see running out wide there is the number 316. In the time we've been discussing recent events, things have kicked back off on this grid as we descend upon its final chapters. Perhaps a little bit lost in the conversation, how time flies when you're having fun. But the case here for Jack Giles, he's run out wide through Tamburello. We see here for Saunders, he's being pressured by what looks to be Jorbe van Herle, but he's down in 14th place on a different length of today's race. Will we not long getting on board then with the number 788? Meanwhile, just to quickly see in here with the number 77 in a moment's time, we'll try to find them here. Dennis Kuhlman looks to have damage with NRW Performance. Yes, that is very much so the case. You can see his car's actually skewed there on the front. He's going to have to limp it all the way to the line here. Well, more on that in a moment's time. We see heading down towards the line, though, and we'll stay on the larger monitors to see every driver down towards the checkered flag here. It's looking upon the advent on the exit of Rivazza. Another stellar performance from the 788 team. Florian Oxman and Fazzy Binks head down towards the checkered flag here in Imola. Race win number 4 for the number 788. What a charge it has been here in the wet and wild weather at Imola. 2 wet races back-to-back, both of which yielded victories for the 788. Riyad Yasarevic comes down towards the line here for a very, very solid result indeed for 5-star, where the last couple of rounds have been days to forget. This is one certainly to remember. Down towards the line, Carlos Dish and Riyad Yasarevic, 2nd place in the Aston Martin. Coming to the line, though, representing a significant milestone in the history, very short history, I should say, of their team. Malwar Racing are on the run for a podium. Down to the line then, Axel Cassier and David Tangway, 3rd place with Bentley. On thoughts of what could have been is still a very solid result today for Will Friedman, and Federico Zamblera came back from the ashes to 4th place here with the fastest lap. Easy driver of the day pick by any stretch of the imagination. Levi Warner coming to the line from the top 5 here with Fratch GT. They fought uncertain odds today and found themselves rewarded with a top 5 at all things said and done. Not far from their current position here, we see ongoing at the moment. In and amongst traffic, Matteo Mastromaro. We also see there James Mason. That's Noah Haggard actually behind the wheel at the moment, making his way down towards the line. Mastromaro to the line from 6th. Great result then amidst very wild conditions for the team. The 314 comes to the line. Brooklyn Donkin and Kieran Rodd in 7th. Taylor Wayne to the line then, KTJ Motorsports. As expected there, we spoke about it earlier, dished out a 132nd penalty for failure to field all available drivers. Adam Saunders then looks to be on the promotions to the win here in the Privateers division. As right now it stands to be KTJ Motorsports. We'll see how that gets dished out over the course of what's left of the race here. We see that 132nd penalty, but it did very little to damage it. So as far as we're concerned, KTJ Motorsports takes the Privateers division win here in round 5. Your outright winners once again on their 4th this season. the number 788, Florian Oxman, and Fazzy Binks, the exclusive esports Bentley. What a result we've seen here today. A brilliant race. Very short, very sweet in the terms of this championship, and it was fantastic racing, albeit incredibly scary for some. So we see there the run of the DNFs. Nexus GT's Josh Wellbelove, Casey Miles with Team Raceline, Liam Mutz was a DNS with AXRL Heat. Sadly, we could not see them today. But we'll be seeing AXRL not far from now, as we are getting on with them for the, I think it's the Southern Summer Endurance Series. I think that's what they've called it, or Southern Summer Endurance, something along those lines, something southern, something summery, and it's endurance related. So that's going to be fantastic. Get on board with them. That's coming up not actually too far from now. I think it's next week, actually, as it stands, coming in to that new event. And that'll be running over the next couple of months. For us here in the Console Endurance Series, another great day then for the exclusive esports team, but something major to take away here. 5-star and Malwa on the podium alongside them. An all-British manufacturers podium there with Bentley and Aston Martin amongst the fray. So a very cheerful sight then for any Aston Martin and Bentley fans. Will Friedman and that of Federico Zamblera, easy drivers of the day there in that number 787, came back from nothing, built an empire from rubble to 4th place from the pit lane over 3 hours. A great result. Also great results then for the rest of the top 10 as well. Solid results to take away for everyone who made it to the checkered flag amongst one of the most dangerous races of the season. And that's really saying something when you consider, looking back through the season as well, that we were in Bathurst back in November. Taking a look then on where we'll be next, we head to the Temple of Speed, the home of the Italian Grand Prix, the Autodromo Nazionale di Monza, on the 14th of February 2026 for the Monza 6 hours for the first time ever in the Console Endurance Series. Then we return the rounds thereafter into March to a legacy event of Season 1. We saw a great finish in the last running of the Suzuka 4 hours, and we return to Mie Prefecture, Japan to see it all over again at round 7, the penultimate round of the season, and then a brand new round for Console Endurance Series Season 2. The Indianapolis 6 hours comes up at the season finale on the 21st of March 2026. That's all from us here on TRTN. A great day then for racing here in NLRL. A lot to take away from this round today. A great result. Very well done to our race winners in division then for the pro and overall, Fazzy Binks and that of Florian Oxman in the 788 exclusive esports Bentley. And then looking there for the KTJ Motorsports lineup, just briefly here, pulling it up on my notes. It's been for that of Kieran McMillan, Josh Hickenbottom, and Taylor Wayne. Despite that penalty, they still take the division win in the privateers. Well, that's all from us. Our minds frazzled. I think that just about suits it. That's all from us here on TRTN. Have a wonderful rest of your evening. And you'll be seeing us tomorrow at the earliest for the HCCL 2.4 hours of Kyalami race for charity. So we'll be seeing you then tomorrow. Until then, that's all from us. Take care and good night.